What is going on, Odds Squad? It's your boys. It's the crew from Odds HQ and Odds.com. Hope you're having a beautiful Friday night. It's been too long. We're back. It's UFC Fight Island 7. I got my guys here. Let's throw it around, see how they're doing, and let's start breaking this one down. Guru, what's up, dude?
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I mean, it's 2021. First time we're getting to see everyone's faces, hear their voices for the new year, man. And we got a real good main event tomorrow. I mean, usually when you see Max Holloway, he's not usually on a free card. So this is the first time he hasn't been in a title fight in a long time. So it's going to be a fun main event, pretty good card, and definitely excited to see you guys in the chat. So, yeah, man, it's a good show today for sure.
Let's get after it. MMA LOTN, what's up, my man?
I'm happy to be well rested, getting those 3 weekends off, but we're right back at it. 3 fights in 8 days, 7 days, whatever it is, and the UFC's debut on ABC. How could they start it any better than with Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar? So I'm really looking forward to breaking this down and seeing you guys again. I saw Cody yesterday, but now we got the full gang together. I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions on this and getting some bets out of this shit. So let's get it going.
Absolutely. And in the bottom corner, we got CJ Saftic, my man Cody Saftic. How have you been on the break?
Man, I actually forgot how awesome it was to break down fights every week because you know what? The last time out, a couple times, I don't back Calvin Kattar. Man, my comment section blows up. People are pissed off. I am an idiot. This time I back Calvin Kattar. Man, people are pissed off. I am an idiot. I just miss how you can't have it both ways. Love the passion, love the excitement. So, yeah, good to be back together with the gang breaking down fights again.
Absolutely. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it. Our first fight of the night, we got Jacob Kilburn going up against Austin Lingo. Let's kick it to my man Guru to kick off 2021.
Yeah, crazy fight to kick it off, right? I mean, it might not be the most high-level fight, but these are two guys that are going to go in there, and it's probably going to be a finish brutally one way or the other because – I mean, in the first fight both these guys had in the UFC, I mean, Austin Lingo went in there against Yusuf Zalal, and he was actually a big favorite in that fight, but kind of got outclassed. And then the same thing happened with Billy Q when he fought in his debut against him. So, they're kind of trying to get redemption here. And I feel like Austin Lingo, I mean, he's probably the guy with more power, but I do think he's kind of on the feet at least. I think Kilburn has more weapons, but I'm just not 100% sure Kilburn really knows how to put it together in the cage because he is an ATT, and I do think that'll help. He's like only 25 years old, I think. So he could maybe come in here and, kick and move, have a similar game plan to Zalal, but he does have that big weakness with the grappling, but I don't know if Lingo is going to necessarily exploit that. I feel like it's probably going to be on the feet. So I think that Kilburn, has a chance. They both have knockout power, but I just feel like Lingo with, his game, I think he just knows how to use it a little bit better with the forward pressure, the boxing, getting in the pocket. I think he'll be able to maybe lure Kilburn into more exchanges than Yusuf Zalal was willing to get into just because Kilburn's a little bit crazy. So I'm going to go with the Lingo by knockout, but I mean, I'm not super, confident in either side. I did see the under 2.5 rounds was plus money, so I think that's not a bad play at all. But in terms of the fight, I'm going to go with Lingo.
Nice. Lock, let's kick it to you.
Yeah, kind of the same read as Guru here. I think Lingo is definitely the more technical striker here, better with his boxing, better with his hands. Whereas Kilburn, we see a guy that likes to throw the flashy stuff. He likes to spin, he likes to fly, he likes to do whatever the hell he wants in there, but he doesn't really throw in combinations much. And that's where my issue is with him. Whereas Lingo, we see that crisp boxing for him. And, mixing the fact that he's a Fortis MMA product, and we've been doing this show for how many weeks now? Whenever there's a Fortis MMA guy, you guys know I'm usually on him as long as they're not a horrible fighter. But I don't think Austin Lingo is a horrible fighter here. I think he has all the chops to go out there and knock out Jacob Kilburn. His knockout prop is still sitting at plus 265, which I think is a great line. The spot that I jumped on earlier last week was the under 2.5, which was at plus money, but there's a bunch of money coming in on it now. It's currently sitting around that minus 120 range, but I still think there's value there considering that both these guys probably want to go out there and swing leather. Now, Austin Lingo, like Guru was talking about, big favorite going up against Yusuf Zalal and kind of drops the ball. Pretty similar line that we have here at minus 225. But I think rather than playing him straight, he's more than likely going to get the knockout. So you can either chase that knockout prop or even just take that under 2.5 to potentially cover a Jacob Kilburn Hail Mary KO of any sort as well too. So I think Lingo gets it done here. I think he catches Kilburn on after one of his, or as a counter to one of those crazy shots that he throws, and picks up his first ever win in the UFC and keeps moving forward. So I like Lingo here. Maybe not the money line so much, but that under 2.5 is definitely looking sexy to me.
Sounds good to me. Cody Saftic, how do you see it?
Yeah, the money line doesn't look great because you got a guy in Austin Lingo who did actually come out as a dud in his UFC debut as a big favorite, regardless of it being a bad stylistical matchup. He's now been off in the shell for 11 months, and now he's going to Abu Dhabi. It's the first time he's ever fought professionally outside of Texas. So there are a few things going against him that would give you some cause for concern in the money line. However, yeah, you got to think. I'm actually banking on the fact that he will have made a bunch of improvements. He already had good boxing at big power. You see all those knockout wins on his record. You see how he is able to get it done. It's just a guy like Yusuf Zalal is a counter striker. He moves laterally. He's fast. He's a counter puncher. He's going to be in and out. And I think Lingo just moves too much on forward movement. Like he doesn't really cut angles. He just comes straight at you. So Zalal is able to mix up the grappling. Zalal is able to evade. But a guy like Jacob Kilburn, that his best asset as well is his striking, and he's going to be in front of him, and they are going to be striking. It's probably going to favor Lingo. Now, the other thing is Lingo's 25 years old when he makes his UFC debut. He's undefeated. He had just headlined an LFA card where he knocked out Solo Hatley Jr. in 25 seconds. Sky's the limit for this guy. But with these young prospects, like they have to lose in order to go back to the drawing board and have something to reconfigure. Him losing is a good thing. Losing that undefeated record, it's fine. Those are the early bumps of a young fighter, right? He learned that his grappling needs to be shored up. His cardio finally going into 3 rounds. How did that check out? Being able to cut these angles. So no doubt that Saif Saud and everybody over at Fortis MMA, 11 months of just being able to work on these things. Now he's 26 years old. He's still just young. But he will have come back, learned a ton in his UFC debut. Whereas with Jacob Kilburn, still young as well, don't get me wrong, but already 3 losses, been finished 3 times, all 3 times by submission. On the Contender Series against Bobby Moffett, I thought he was getting boxed up prior to getting taken down and submitted. UFC debut against Billy Q, who's my boy, we all know that. But dominated in spectacular fashion. So with Austin Lingo, he still is the upside. He still is the better prospect, quote unquote. And yes, Jacob Kilburn has gone to ATT, but he's just a body in the room. There's a lot of guys at ATT. I don't think you can take too much from that. So moneyline I don't love. Me and Locke talked about it last night. Lingo by knockout is actually plus 330. It's already dropped down to plus 265. So people are seeing that as a path to victory. Fight to Austin Lingo inside the distance is plus 115. It's still plus money. And that under 2.5 was plus money. Those were all the plays. I think someone's going to win this inside the distance. I'm banking on Lingo's going to catch him. Could Kilburn flip the script and catch him back? Yeah. If it's 2 strikers going head to head, 2 young guys, something to prove, swinging leather, anything can happen. But I think Lingo is going to be a little more refined, a little more polished. His boxing combinations eventually land, and he puts them down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think Lingo gets it done. I do like that under 2.5 as well. I wish I could get it at plus money still, but, obviously a lot of value there. Just keeping it plain and simple, man, to wrap this one up. I just don't think Kilburn's as good as Lingo. It's that simple. A little more exotic of a flashy, a little bit more of a flashy striker. I like Lingo's hands much better. I think he probably finds the KO. It's Lingo for me, but the play I think is that under 2.5. Okay, second fight of the year. Sarah Moras versus Vanessa Melo. Locke, kick us off here.
They're giving us a backyard fight this early in the fucking card. I'm totally down, but the one thing that I'm liking the most that we're seeing from both of these women, especially from the weigh-in, is they're in much better shape. We've definitely never seen them in better shape than we did see them this morning. So they definitely know that they're on the chopping block here. A loss could easily mean an exit for either woman here, especially Vanessa Melo, who's coming off of 3 straight losses. So she's got to go in there. She's got to implement her game, use the tactics that she used in the regional scene to get to the UFC. And she could do it against a girl like Sarah Moras. However, I just think that Moras has that a little bit extra. She has a heavy UFC experience. She used to be on The Ultimate Fighter years ago. I can't believe she only has 12 fights in the UFC, or 12 pro fights, and she was in the Ultimate Fighter, which seems like a century ago. So I feel like her game plan of dragging this fight to the ground, maybe roughing her up in the clinch a little bit, probably is the way to go. But given the fact that these girls are, in the best shapes of their lives, who knows what kind of what kind of performance we'll get from either girl, especially Vanessa. Like, she might come here and just surprise all of us. Like, her taking it this seriously to get in this crazy amount of shape, it has got to be a bit of a red flag for anybody that just went out there and automatically parlayed Sarah Moras to just like, oh God, I was definitely not expecting this type of Vanessa Melo. So I give the striking advantage to Melo, but she's very rudimentary with it too. Like, she just marches forward, doesn't really cut any angles too much. She throws a lot of power in her shots too, but we've seen Moras be able to deal with the striking of some opponents. She has great durability. Even the Liana Jojua fight back at UFC 242, where she took some damage early in that fight and then eventually finished it later. I think we could see something similar like that here too. But I'm leaning with the grappler a little bit more here. I think that Moras will be able to get a hold of her, drag it to the ground, throw some jiu-jitsu in there, maybe have some ground and pound as well too. But I see her just grinding her way to a decision victory. So I'm going with Sarah Moras, and the line is coming down now too. Like, she's around that minus 225, minus 230 range. Now she's down to like minus 190. So I think people are seeing that Vanessa Melo on the scales and like, all right, maybe we're going to get the true Vanessa Melo in this fight, but I think not. I think people are getting a little bit too far ahead with that. I still think that Moras is going to get this done, and I'm taking her to win by decision.
Right on. CJ Saftic, hit us.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think honestly it's probably should be lying closer to an even money fight, just because there's intangibles on both sides. It's women's MMA. You have a 6-6 fighter versus a 10-8 fighter. Like, both women's are accustomed to losing. They almost win as much as they do lose. Could go either way. And it really is the tale of two fights, right? Vanessa Melo does not want to end up on her back. The few times we have seen her try to play guard, she's got nothing. She's got very little ability to escape and get back to her feet. She's not throwing up submissions. She's almost a fish out of water, holding on, hoping that the ref's going to stand it up at some point. Sarah Moras is thick, man. You see them legs on her. You don't want her in top position. If Sarah Moras is able to trip her and get her to the ground, she's going to win the scrambles. She does have the better ground game. She should win a ground battle. The problem is that she can't strike. Absolutely can't strike. Now, yeah, she's in great shape. But what does great shape mean? Does great shape mean that you're lifting weights? It probably means if Sarah Moras ends up in top control, she's going to be good and strong and ready to go with the fight she wants. But we already knew that, right? It's not as if I can bank on the fact that her striking skills have advanced. And for someone who is getting lit up by Jojua, I just can't bank that if this fight does not hit the ground that she's going to falter. And with Vanessa Melo, yeah, 10-8, but she's ultra durable. Of those 8 losses, she's lost 7 times by decision. Was TKO'd in her second pro fight, and it was like 13 years ago or something. It's a long time. So this fight is more than likely going to decision. And in a decision, I mean, you're just trying to bank on if Sarah Moras is going to get the fight to the ground. She should hold the better positions. She should have a little bit of ground and pound. She should win the fight. If she's unable to get the fight to the ground, then Vanessa Melo is going to have some chance. It's live dog. But I mean, come on. I think we're all in agreement that this is a pass fight. You do not need to bet this fight. There's much better spots. There's a lot of variables. If you're purely chasing a dog based on the fact that this is lined improperly, then this is lined improperly. But as Locke alluded to, money's coming in on the other side, not because anybody has a hot lean. Sarah Moras looked better at weigh-ins. She looked bigger. She looked stronger. She looked more physically imposing. Money's coming on Melo just because people realize that, like, it's going to be a relatively close-ish, greasy type of decision, goes to decision. And for that reason, you wouldn't want to bank on Moras. Now, if you are going to take one side of this, I think you take it by decision. If you're going to take Sarah Moras, you take her by decision. She does have the knockout over Jojua, the TKO. She does have the submission over Ashley Evans-Smith. Those are her 2 finishes in the last 8 years, right? 1 knockout, 1 submission. Both arguably shouldn't have happened, but did, right? So she's not huge on finishes. And Melo, we talked about her durability, and has fought in good finishers as well in the past and lived to tell the tale. She's also not beaten up an opponent with a winning record in a very long time. So it's very, very low level. Buyer beware. The official pick would be Sarah Moras by decision, but I'm not like super. It's not something I would bank a ton of, confidence in.
I feel you there. Guru, how confident are you?
Man, I mean, I can't really add much more to what they said with this fight, man. I mean, we got Sarah Moras where, I mean, at least to me, like the reason why, I'm going to pick him and I think they're picking him too, besides what they said, is at least she's shown something in the UFC where she's won a couple fights. She's got some finishes. And I feel like she does on the feet. I think that, Melo's advantage is not as big as if Moras can get it to the ground. So I'm just going to go with that. But I mean, to me, it's like, I wouldn't be shocked if Melo went in here and landed a left hook, dropped Moras in 2 rounds, and then won the fight, because it's like, who really knows what's going to happen? But I think that I'm just going to go with Moras, though, in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm taking Moras, too. You guys said it all right. It's Melo probably wants to keep it on the feet. Moras probably wants to take her down, hold her down, cruise to that decision. Women's MMA, very deadly. The one thing I got to say about this fight is Sarah Morris minus 200 over anyone is that's just too much. She's not that good, but I get it. I do think she deserves to be the favorite, but incredible value, total pass for me, or incredible lack of value, total pass for me. And let's keep her rolling. We got David Zawada going up against Ramazan Emeev. I think it's my man Cody Saftic kicking us off here.
Yeah, so interesting fight. You have Ramazan Emeev. He's just a decision machine. He sucks the life out of you. They're not exactly the most entertaining fights. They're not exactly the most spectacular fights, but there's no denying that the guy's a winner. He knows how to win. He knows how to do exactly what he needs to do to get the nod on the judges' scorecards. But they're close fights. And I've bet the guy on multiple occasions. And it's like you have that feeling that you should win. But even as it's going to the scorecards, you're like, I really hope the judges are feeling the same way about that as me. They're not like these really confident, like, whoa, chalk it up. Another victory for Ramazan Emeev. Like, they always feel tight. So when you see this type of money line, it's like, man, you would want more confidence in him based on he's probably going to be in a close fight. And there's the problem with David Zawada. He's actually got a lot of things that I like. He figures to probably be the better striker in the spot. He's got heavier hands, more power, more diverse striking skill set, and has just ultimately looked better in striking exchanges, right? You see the Danny Roberts fight in his octagon debut, and he loses a close split decision. It's a fight of the night effort, but his striking looks okay. The Jingliang Lee fight, he drops Lee, who we'll talk about later on the card, has a few spots where he looks to be okay. Ramazan Emeev has not had those spots, The only time you've really seen him use his striking is that Nicholas Stolze fight his last time out. And to be honest, he kind of looked tired in that fight. He got hit in that fight. It wasn't a great performance by no means. So with Zawada, if he does have a striking advantage, he needs to keep this fight standing, right? Well, that's going to be hard to do against Emeev. But Zawada's also got that ground game. He figures to also probably have the better jiu-jitsu. He throws up triangles off his back. He throws up arm bars off his back. He's opportunistic. He'll try to get back up to his feet. He'll try to make you work, and that's okay with Emeev because oftentimes guys do get back up. He just tries to blanket them again. I think Zawada's a live dog in that. If he's able to keep this fight standing, he boxes him up. He should get the nod. If the fight hits the ground, he should be able to throw up submissions. But you don't bet against Ramazan Emeev for the simple fact that he's just going to grind this thing to a halt, slow it down. And in Abu Dhabi, I don't know. I don't know who he's in with or what the deal is, but it just feels like they usually, more often than not, give him these close decisions, right? So Zawada's going to have to finish him in order to concisely get the victory, and that's going to be a problem in its own. Like, Emeev's got pretty good durability, right? So I don't know. I would say that this is probably another pass because of that money line, but I think you chase Ramazan Emeev, and anytime you do bet Ramazan Emeev, you take it by decision. So if you are backing him, you take it, you chase that extra value, and you take him to take him down and hold him down and get him up against the cage and grind him up against the cage, and just not the most exciting fight. And you'll probably not be super confident when it goes to decision, but then he'll end up getting it, and we'll move on from there.
Man, sounds about right. Guru, how you seeing it?
Yeah, it's an interesting fight because I feel like both these guys have kind of different game plans in there, because Zawada, he's going in there and he's trying to finish you all the time, even on the feet, on the ground. And like Cody said, Ramazan Emeev, his goal is kind of just to coast to the win, kind of slow it down, hold the guy against the cage, take him down, grind him out. But he's never like super hard going for the finish where, I feel like in this fight, the thing about it that I like for Emeev is just because when I watch Zawada, he does struggle with the jab. A lot of guys that can land a lot of jabs on him because he comes in real wild, and that's why he'll always get taken down real easily in a lot of fights. Like, he's gotten taken down in that Danny Roberts fight multiple times, a lot of his fights on the regional scene as well, held against the cage. And I just feel like Emeev is probably going to be the guy that's a little bit smarter in there in terms of what he's going to do. He's going to hold him against the fence, win on the points. And I think Zawada is going to be the guy maybe that's going to, jump on a guillotine or pull guard and end up on his back and then, waste half the round. So unless he can get a finish, like Cody was saying, I think it's going to be really hard for him to get a decision against Emeev. I just think Emeev is going to get ahead on the control time, maybe land a couple pot shots after he gets him thinking about the grappling, and just be able to just win a decision that way. So I don't think he's going to finish him, but I do think unless Zawada in the first round can get, a quick submission like he did against Nurmagomedov or, a quick like flash KO, I think that Emeev will probably, start to pull away and get the decision. So I'm going to go with Emeev in this one.
Right on. What do you think, Locke?
Yeah, it's just as Cody was saying, man. Like the amount of times that Imavov fights super close with his opponents and fights to his level, the level of his opponent, you don't feel so nice about that minus 270. You know what I mean? Like you want to have a little bit more cushion to be like, okay, I feel safe that once this hits the scorecards, I don't have to worry about a crappy decision or a decision that's going to surprise me. Imavov just fights way too close, and it's just not. It doesn't sit well with me, which is why I would rather chase the decision prop at minus 110. The last time we saw me finish somebody was over 6 fights ago or 7 fights ago against Mikhail Falcao, who used to fight in the UFC as well too. I believe that was an anaconda choke victory for him, but I don't see him going out there and submitting a guy like David Zawada. Now, unless Zawada goes out there and absolutely just empties his gas tank in those first 2 rounds or something like that, and we see him maybe get something later in the fight, we just don't see, like, historically, we just don't see that from Imavov. So I don't know how you can, like, honestly and confidently say that Imavov is live for a finish here. So I do like Imavov as well too. I like his striking style. He's very efficient, but again, very low output, fights close to his opponent's level, and that's what makes it a little bit more sketchy to back Imavov here, especially at that high minus 270 line. If you want any action on this fight, it's the Imavov decision at minus 110. Otherwise, like Zawada inside the distance is the only other like hedge that I could see here. But I think that this is a quintessential Ramazan Imavov fight. Just going to wet blanket him, push him up against the cage, eventually get him down, and just do some good damage from on top. I like Imavov, but definitely not at that minus 270 line. So I'll go with Imavov via decision.
Right on. Yeah, Locke, I feel like, you took the words right out of my mouth. Imavov's one of these guys that, regardless of the talent level he's fighting, he's going to just go out there and give just that notch above, you know what I mean? And he's going to go out there, he's going to cruise to that decision, like Cody said. I like that decision prop. I think that's very interesting. I think that's a good one. Locke, like you said, I think, Zawada would have to really empty the tank and just kind of be dead out there for Imavov to find that finish. He just, he's definitely the position over submission type. When I think about this fight, when I think about how Zawada is going to win, I feel more than likely it's going to have to be like his last fight where he ended up catching the triangle off his back. I think he's probably going to have to throw something up. To me, that feels, Hail Mary-ish. I just don't see it happening 2 fights in a row. To take out 2 Russians in a row, 2 Russian wrestlers with a triangle. I don't see it. Imavov's the guy for me, but again, a line that's just a little too wide. So Imavov's the pick, and I think you guys are spot on with that decision prop. It sounds good. Okay, here we go. Heavyweights. Oh, man, they gave us a banger to start the year off. Justin Tafa, Carlos Felipe, 2 big dudes throwing down. Locke, I think you're up on this one.
Yeah, we were talking about thick a couple fights ago. I'm going to steal Cody's nickname right here from my guy, Carlos Felipe. We got Thick Diaz coming in here against Justin Tafa. I love that. Probably nickname of the year. I got to say that. I love this guy's mentality. I love the way he fights. It used to rub me the wrong way when he first made his UFC debut, but then when you see like he actually like lives that way, he's just always that guy that likes to talk shit, try to get his opponent to overextend a little bit and tries to capitalize. But I like what we see from him. I initially thought that we're going to get a guy that just wants to go out there and swing leather, but there is a little bit of method to his madness. Like he rolls with punches very well. He moves very well too. Puts together very good combinations. His cardio is pretty good as well for a Thick Diaz. And at that minus 190 line, I don't mind him in the spot either. With Justin Tafa, everybody always wants to lean on the kickboxing background, but like that doesn't always tell the tale. You know what I mean? Like just because he has kickboxing record doesn't mean he's going to go out there and dead dudes. Like just ask Zaruk Adeshev from a couple of months ago, right? Like just because you fought in glory doesn't mean that you ultimately always have the striking advantage. This is MMA at the end of the day. So with that MMA mindset going into his fight for Carlos Felipe, I think he can rough up Tafa up against the cage, take him down if he wants to. And I truly don't believe that Tafa has a good gas tank either. Now, on the regional scene, we did see him get some TKO finishes after that first round. But luckily for him, he was going up against guys that aren't, in my opinion, as polished as Carlos Felipe, that move as well as he does, that rolls with shots as well as he does. So I truly think that we could see a Felipe finish a little bit later in this fight, maybe second round. On the prop show yesterday, I dropped round 2 Felipe for around plus 525. I think round 3 is a possibility as well too. We've seen Justin Tafa huffing and puffing, and his power has bailed him out in the past. I don't think it's going to bail him out here. I think it's really 1 round or bust for Tafa, but I just don't think he does well against guys that put punches together as well as Felipe, that bring the pace and the pressure that Felipe does. And I truly like Felipe here. I think he's a good parlay piece at minus 190. Even if you want to play him straight at minus 190, I think you're getting some solid value here from Felipe, who should pretty much win this fight everywhere. Like as long as he doesn't get knocked out, and from what I've seen, he has pretty good durability. So I think he'll be able to take a shot from Justin Tafa here. But yeah, that last round against Yorgan De Castro was a little bit sketchy where he just wasn't able to get off the cage. I'm hoping he's learned from that. I don't know if Justin Tafa is as durable as Yorgan De Castro, even though Yorgan De Castro was just sucking wind at that point in time. I don't think we see Tafa survive the amount of time that Yorgan did. So I'm going with Felipe, probably second or third round finish. But yeah, I love Felipe in this situation.
I like it. Cody Saftic, fire off.
Yeah, Carlos Felipe's definitely an interesting prospect considering the UFC signed him back in 2017, and he's only 23 years old at the time. And then obviously he got flagged right away by USADA, took a 3-year suspension. But you're seeing this guy make improvements in real time. Like his debut against Sergey Spivak, in hindsight, like that's a tough debut opponent. You haven't fought in 3 years. You did one pro boxing match while you're on the sidelines. Now you're taking on a guy for as much as like low-level heavyweights go. Sergey Spivak does have a good ground game, and that's what he's able to use to expose him. But there's little glimpses of like, oh yeah, maybe Felipe could be okay. Next time out, it's the same thing as Yorgan De Castro. Now everyone's fading him because he just lost to Sergey Spivak. But it's like Yorgan's not going to take him down and dominate him in these grappling transitions. So let's see what the guy's made out of. And that's where you see that thick Diaz, that resemblance to that Diaz style where he stalks his opponents. He stands in front. He lets his hands go. A lot of volume punches. Not a whole lot of heavy sit down on your power, plant your feet punches, but just keeps picking away. Cardio, checks out. He's got that attitude. He's got that stand in front of you, smile, egg you on. You hit him with a good shot, and he's smiling again. Like he just causes you to question yourself the entire time you're in there. And again, he's only 26 years old. He's a big guy, not exactly height-wise, but as far as his frame goes, he seems to be a big heavyweight, and he's a mobile heavyweight with good cardio. If he was able to become a good grappler, maybe this is a guy that 2-3 years down the road could factor in as a top 10 guy. We just don't know if his ground game's any good. Well, luckily for him, they've given him Justin Tafa, who it's like does not figure to take him down. This fight ain't hitting the ground. So you've got a New Zealand heavy-set kickboxer versus a Brazilian, more of a flowing boxing style, and that's what I'm going to favor here. I did mention on the show last night I thought this fight was going to go the distance. Why? Felipe is not really a power puncher per se. He's, again, a volume guy. And when you see him versus Yorgan De Castro, especially in that third round, Yorgan's dead. Yorgan's got no gas in the tank. He's completely sucking when he's huffing and puffing, and he resorts to just like walking forward and just like hold it. And it somehow works. Felipe just allows himself to just go up against the cage. Like his grappling seems to be non-existent, but not being able to capitalize on a guy that tired and hurt him and put him away doesn't bode well for a guy in Tafa that yet, even if he does get tired, could just be the same thing. He could be able to just, buy some time and clinch up here and there. And now the more that I think about it, though, it is two heavyweights. You've got Tafa, who's going to just be swinging leather hard in that first round and then probably will gas out, versus Felipe, who's still a big boy, who's going to try to land over 100 significant strikes. He could finish him late. I'm not so sold on that fight goes the distance prop anymore. However, I think it's going to be a really good, entertaining fight, and Felipe takes over after the second round. Good competitive first round, close, could go either way, and then second and third round, cardio, volume, checks out, and Felipe ends up cruising to, if a late stoppage, or if not, it does go the distance.
Good stuff. Guru, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like for the first round, Tafa is going to be pretty dangerous. I mean, obviously, he's a big guy, weighed in, I think, at the limit, 265.5. And, so he looked a lot bigger than Carlos Felipe, too, when you looked at it at the weigh-ins. But, I mean, I just feel like technically Tafa, I watched a few of his fights, and I know he has that kickboxing background, but I just don't really like his defense. Like his defense when he'll shell up against the cage, things like that. Doesn't really, to me, have the best movement, even though he does look like he's athletic. Like I do probably think he has athletic advantage, but I think that unless he lands a bomb or really could against Juan Adams, I will say he was working those leg kicks, and Tafa can sometimes be a little bit heavy on his lead leg. So if he could maybe early on, like really hurt Felipe's leg, then you could maybe like extend the fight and make it closer. But I just see Felipe kind of doing his thing. Like they were saying, like Thick Diaz, make the cage small and just kind of box him up and, fake feint, make Tafa open up and just start to, really take over. And I actually could see him get a finish. I mean, Tafa's never been to the third round. So there's some, I'm not really sure how he's going to do under like a lot of adversity, because if you watch some of his fights, when he starts to get hit, he likes to shoot in for takedowns and stuff like that. So if he can't get the takedowns like he did against guys that I don't really think are on Felipe's level, he might just kind of, give in. So who knows what'll happen, but I feel like early on it could be a close fight, but I do think Felipe will start to, take over and really, dominate towards the end.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I'm with you guys. I got Carlos Felipe in this one. It's for me, like you said, Guru, Tafa's going to be very dangerous early on. If we see a one-shot KO early in this fight, I'm almost certain it's going to be Tafa landing the big shot on Felipe. But if that doesn't happen, I feel like it's just Felipe from there on out. In his last fight, I was incredibly impressed, honestly, with his output. I think he's going to put up double if this fight goes to a decision, what Tafa puts up, maybe even beyond that. I just think he's going to touch him up. He's more volume over power guy. I don't think that bodes well for Tafa unless he finds that early KO. Give me Carlos Felipe. Okay, here we go. Yanan Wu, Joselyne Edwards, and I think it's my man Guru on this one.
Yeah, so this is a short notice fight. It's supposed to be Betch Carrera's retirement fight. I think they did this once or twice. They tried to set up that fight with her and Wu Yanan. But, Wu Yanan, to me, I've never been super impressed with her. If you look at the girls she's fought, throughout her career, I think she has quite a few knockouts, but every person she's knocked out has 0 wins. And then, she's fought some people in the UFC where Lauren Mueller, she has her win over, and she fought Gina Mazzani and, another girl I can't remember right now, but not really very stiff competition. And she hasn't really been doing well against that competition either. She's 1-2, but she is young. She's at Tiger Muay Thai, and she is big for the division, kind of physical. But when I look at the, fight on paper, I think Edwards is better everywhere. She's looks pretty good to me on the feet. She's athletic. She has power. And in terms of the grappling, you could say maybe she showed some deficiencies in the grappling in the Sarah Alpar fight and other certain fights. But I do feel like she's better on the ground in this matchup. So I do think that Edwards is probably going to be able to come in here and get it done. But Edwards, if she comes in here not in good shape, she took the fight on really short notice, then maybe, she'll start to slow down and then her opponent will take over down the stretch. But as of now, I just think Edwards is either going to win a decision or she can get a first-round finish because, we've seen Lauren Mueller drop Wu Yanan in the first round, things like that. And Edwards, comes out really hard, has actually a lot of first-round finishes. So I wouldn't be shocked to see that, but I'm actually going to say Edwards probably wins a decision.
Love it, Guru. Lock of the night. Hit us with it.
Yeah, I actually like what I see on tape from Edwards, and I feel so bad for her last opponent, Pamela Gonzalez, who just did not deserve to be in the cage that night. 3-4 going in against Edwards, who did not fight in all of 2019, and this fight took place in July of 2020. So her last fight before that was in November of 2018, and I truly think the reason she took the fight against Pamela Gonzalez was to stay active. And everybody could tell that woman did not deserve to be in the cage that night. She just got bull rushed right off the bat and just got deaded. It almost looked like Vanderlei Silva against Vitor Belfort for a second, where she just got absolutely crushed right off the bat, right? So I like what we see from her on the feet. Good hands, good Muay Thai, maintains distance quite well too. Obviously, she struggled a bit against Sarah Alpar, where Alpar was pretty much just trying to dig for that takedown as much as possible, get her to the ground and push her up against the cage. But if you're really scoring that fight from the way it should be scored, in my opinion, which is damage first and control second, Edwards probably won that fight. And I think the commentators were in agreement with that too. She ends up losing a split decision there. Sarah Alpar comes to the UFC, gets absolutely deaded by, not deaded, but ragdolled by Jessica Rose Clark. But I think that Edwards is definitely at that point where she's a promising prospect. Unfortunately for her, she's going up against Wu Yanan, who is a promising prospect in my opinion too. We're seeing a fight-to-fight improvement on her end as well too. She's working with Marlon Sandro with her grappling. If most people remember Sandro, he's a former Bellator champion, if I'm not mistaken, a veteran from over there. He awarded Wu Yanan her blue belt after submitting Lauren Mueller in that fight. But I'm liking what we see from Edwards, man. I think she has all the tools on the feet. I think it's almost going to look like the main event in the aspect where we have volume against damage. And I think the damage of Edwards is what the judges will see more if this ends up going to the judges' scorecards. And that's where I see it. And yeah, we kind of pointed out yesterday too, Edwards via decision is plus 260, in my opinion, is a great spot as well. Yeah, is it still? Yeah, it's still plus 260, which is a crazy line in my opinion, especially for a fight that a lot of people think could go to a decision. I think Wu is quite durable, so she'll be able to take the shots, but I don't think that her shots are going to have as much of an impact as what Edwards brings to the table. So I'll go with Edwards. I think she's very promising. I can't wait to see how she develops in the UFC. I hope she ends up changing training camps. So I think she's out there in Iowa somewhere where she's working with like a no-name camp. I don't even know who the hell she's training with. But if she wants to elevate her game, she's going to have to change camps, at least in my opinion. But yeah, I think we should see her pick up a victory in her UFC debut here. So I'll take Edwards to win this fight via decision.
Good stuff. Cody, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Wu Yanan here. I think it's another it's going to be a close fight. It's going to be relatively competitive. It's going to go to the scorecards. Someone's going to be awarded the decision. I don't think that you can have a ton of faith on either side because there's just a ton of variables, right? With Edwards, she does, at least on as far as tape studying her goes, she probably does have the slight edge. Her striking seems a little more refined. She seems a little stronger. In a lot of her fights, she's the bigger girl. She's 5'8", which is big at this weight class, and she's able to go out there and kind of, use that physicality against opponents. Against Wu Yanan, she's not going to have that. Wu Yanan also 5'8". Everyone loves to laugh about the Gina Mazzani loss because, let's be real here. But that fight's at 135 pounds, and Gina is jacked, right? So it's one of those things where her coming down to 125 is going to be a lot more natural for her. The Mizuki Inoue fight, I believe she missed weight, came in at 129 for that. Now it looked like she was in good shape at weigh-ins. This is somebody that turned pro at 17 years old, Wu Yanan, right? Turns pro at 17. Crazy. She's a product of this Chinese system where all the resources that they can put behind her, they put behind her. She has 2 wins over Bo Meng, the only girl to ever defeat Weili Zhang, and also the current ONE FC champion. She was fighting good competition. Somewhere along the way, that wushu style, that sanda style, those traditional Chinese martial arts styles, those don't work eventually. And what they don't work, again, is that higher echelon. So you see her lose to people like Yana Kunakaya, right? A different level. You see her come to the UFC, and Gina's got an American grinding wrestling style. Doesn't work for her. But you do still see a little bit of development in her game. In that last fight against Mizuki Inoue, I thought she looked like a much better version of herself. She threw a ton of strikes. It was a close fight. She did lose a split decision. I agreed with the decision. I thought she lost. But she gave a better account of herself. Now she's had like 15 months off. And everyone keeps talking about, she's full-time at Tiger Muay Thai. She has Marlon Sandro in her corner. She does nothing but train day in and day out. And you're seeing a lot of these young Chinese prospects. Yeah, they didn't look okay when they first came over, but they're just quickly developing. They're quickly picking up the other skills that are required in order to put together. So in my mind, the UFC never does anybody favors ever, right? And they're not doing Betch Gohea a favor. Yeah, Wu Yanan's not exactly a high-level opponent, but they know it's her retirement fight. They know Betch is on their way out, and Betch is a former title challenger. Betch fought Ronda Rousey on a pay-per-view headliner. Betch has a name, and the best thing we can do for this retirement fight is allow someone to take that shine. We can't give Beth a top-end contender. She's not at that point anymore. But let's give her a young 24-year-old that we can build, that would be popular in another demographic. And that's what you have. They booked this fight twice, gets canceled. And on a week's notice, they scrape up Joselyne Edwards from Iowa by way of Panama, whose most notable win was Sarah Alpar. And we all remember how Sarah Alpar did in her UFC debut against Jessie Jess Rose Clark. Wowza. One-sided. So, you know what? I actually thought she looked good, Joselyne Edwards, in that Alpar fight, considering it's 5 rounds. She's getting good at the grappling skills. But to take a fight on a week's notice is tough. To leave Iowa and fly all the way to Abu Dhabi, where it's a drastic time difference and you're going to have that delay, is all tough. And to taking on a hot prospect who people have a lot of investment into, if you guys are both saying Edwards close, probably a pass, but you're going to lean towards Edwards, I'm thinking the same thing. Close, probably a pass, but I'm leaning towards Wu Yanan to get the victory here by decision.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, that's one thing I totally agree with you guys. That's going to be a close fight. I'm taking Edwards, just because of the fact that I do feel like this fight, when I think about it playing out, feels close to a 50-50 to me. Earlier in the week, Edwards was much, much healthier, a lot more meat on the bone plus money. That's since closed. I mean, we're talking some books, they are dead even at a pick 'em. I'm going to stick with Edwards as the pick I went with earlier in the week. But at the same time, man, from a betting standpoint, I think it's just a total pass in every aspect. I don't think I'll have any action on this over, under, decision, Edwards, Wu. I just don't have a solid read on it. I'm picking Edwards, but it's just going to be a total pass from gambling for me on any standpoint. Women's MMA, one of them making a debut on short notice, screams pass to me. Here's one I really like and can't wait to hear your guys' opinion on. We got Nassourdine Imavov going up against Phil Hawes, and I think it's Locke kicking us off here.
Yeah, I'll take it. This fight kind of reminds me of Spike Carlisle versus Bill Algeo, where you got a guy that is very live in that first round, and then you got another guy who, could definitely take the fight later this fight goes. Now, with Phil Hawes, we're seeing a guy that hasn't seen the third round at all. Now, when the fight hits the second round, he's 2-2. But those 2 losses are the ones that are more recent, where he's lost to Luis Taylor and Julian Marquez via vicious head kick knockout on the Contender Series. I'm sure everybody remembers that one. But Phil Hawes is one of these guys that's been like shoved down our throats from like the Ultimate Fighter, where he didn't even end up making it to the house, but kind of a bad luck in terms of drawing Andrew Sanchez as your first fight to get into the UFC, or at least into the house for a tough. So he loses that fight. Then he gets onto the Contender Series, gets deaded by Julian Marquez. Then he goes out there, changes training camps. Remember, he was the Jackson Wink, Cinderella boy. Everybody wanted to go out there and just talk about how great this guy is, yet he just can't make it to the UFC. Leaves Jackson Wink, goes to Tiger Showman, spends a couple camps over there, then leaves them, goes over to Sanford MMA. Now he's found a home over there. The last 5 weeks he spent in Switzerland with Volkan Oezdemir. I think that's a great move for him, at least in terms of coming onto this or that side of the pond, getting acclimated with the time zone and everything over there, not having to worry about, cutting weight and traveling as far as they do. Because I believe everybody from the North American side, no matter where you are in North America, they bring these guys to Vegas, test them all in Vegas, and then fly them all the way back the other way, all the way to Abu Dhabi, right? So that's a lot of stress and strain on these guys, especially when they're cutting weight. Phil Hawes seems like he cuts a little bit of weight because he's a very thick dude, not much body fat on him either. So he made weight. He looked great on the scales. Not like it didn't really seem like anybody had much issues on the scales this morning either. So I was hoping that we can get into that perspective a little bit more, but there's not really much there other than Sarah Moras and Vanessa Mello looking much better. But in terms of Phil Hawes, I think it's that round one or bust. He tried playing it safe a little bit with Bestayev with using his leg kicks, and then eventually found that big right hand and finished him that way. But I still feel like his cardio was his main issue, and until we see him correct that in the cage, you can't confidently say that, okay, he's going to be more technical and go out there and try to play his game of just kicking the lead leg and waiting for that bomb to drop. I'm still leaning the first round KO for Hawes, though. I feel like that plus 325 in Hawes in round one is a very juicy prop, especially if you think that Hawes wins this fight. He's not going to win in round two. He's deading guys early in his career who don't deserve to be on his level in round two. But then when he fights guys with more experience and more skill set, he loses to those guys once it hits that round two mark. Now, I think that Imavov has a little bit of that tall man syndrome defense that I'm talking about, where it's just like he's leaning back, doesn't really use his footwork much to get out of the way of these punches. And I think the explosiveness and speed of Hawes might catch up to Imavov here. Now, a lot of people are on Imavov. The line has swung from plus 155 all the way down to plus 105 now. I wouldn't be surprised to see Imavov go off as the favorite as well come fight time. However, I just have this feeling in the back of my head that Hawes is going to be able to close that distance, land that big bomb on Imavov, and get the finish here. Now, I also think that Hawes is a very fadeable fighter. I just don't think that this is the spot. I think a much more skilled fighter with better striking defense and more experience than Imavov will be able to not solve this puzzle. Two people have solved this puzzle in the past for Phil Hawes, but I think that he has a very beatable style. But Imavov is not going to be that guy. At least I don't see it. So I'm going with Phil Hawes. If you want to bet Phil Hawes, the round one prop, that's all you got to hit. You hit that round one prop or even that KO prop, plus 155. Obviously, the round one is a little bit better. There's no reason to play him straight. He's not winning a decision. He's not winning via submission either. So hit that KO prop or hit that round one prop, and you should be chilling if you like Phil Hawes, that is. And I like Phil Hawes. Not enough to bet it myself, but I am going to pick him here to win this fight. And yeah, first round KO.
I like it. Cody Saftic, hit us.
Listen, it's a scary proposition betting against Phil Hawes because you've got to go through that first round. But I think once you get out of that first round, that's when Phil Hawes' game just completely falls apart. He's got 9 pro wins, right? 8 of them are in the first round. He has been to the second round one time, and he finished it in 55 seconds into the second round. And then all of his losses are like when you get past that 55 seconds into the second round, that's when he falls apart. The Andrew Sanchez fight in the Ultimate Fighter, it's only a 2-round fight. It's an exhibition, right? The first round, he looks okay. The second round, he's just gassed. The Lewis Taylor fight, first round, man, looks okay. Second round, he's just gassed. The Julian Marquez fight, first round, man, looks okay. Second round, Julian Marquez has only been training for like 3 years at that point and just deads him with a head kick. It's like that was a really green, lower level opponent. And Julian Marquez never really reached any heights beyond that, realistically. But he was just like young in his career, training out of Vegas, raw. Catches Phil Hawes. Once Phil Hawes gets tired, he's won 5 fights in a row since that Julian Marquez fight. All 5 fights in the first round. And they're all really low levels of competition. The win on Contender Series over Bastayev, that's a really low level win. The win over Jacob Malkoun, Robert Whitaker's jiu-jitsu coach, like, guys, let's be real. It was a low level win. He deads those guys all day long. Same way he deaded guys in his amateur career. Same guys as he deaded his first 6 pro opponents. Like when you're not on his level, that freakish athleticism he has is going to just crush you. This is a guy that wrestled at Iowa Central Community College with John Jones and Colby Covington. wrestling's on point, right? His athleticism, we all know about it. Fast twitch muscle, super fast, massive amount of power. 8 first-round finishes. John Jones raves about the guy. He goes to Sanford MMA. Rashad Evans and all those guys rave about the guy. Everybody loves, what Phil Hawes brings, right? But it's after that first round. So listen, I'm an Imavov guy, and he was underdog. I'm all over it. I see it's kind of near money, even money now. People are kind of coming around to it. He's just got to survive that first round. He's never been knocked out. He's been submitted once, like really early into his pro career. He was submitted with a guillotine choke, but I don't think Phil Hawes is submitting him. Phil Hawes is going to try to go out there and knock him out in the first round. And if he cracks that Dagestani chin and Imavov does not go down, he's going to have a problem that second and third round because Imavov just keeps throwing. He's got volume. Maybe he doesn't have the most power, but he'll just keep chipping away. And Hawes is not going to take the damage the way Jordan Williams sat there and took the damage. So I think at some point, Imavov takes over once Phil Hawes starts to gas, once his confidence gets shook, once he gets hit with a good counter shot, and then he starts to fade a little bit. So beforehand, obviously, okay, I got Imavov. I think the Imavov by knockout, which is like plus 450, was a huge price. Certainly Imavov inside the distance, plus 220. If you're going to beat Phil Hawes, you're going to lose to Phil Hawes, he's going to finish you. If you're going to beat him, you're going to finish him. Because I got Imavov, I'm chasing those Imavov inside the distance props. But then the one thing that I will add is that this is an excellent place to make a live bet, right? Phil Hawes might go out there in the first round and look like Phil Hawes and put it on him and beat him up and look really good. And then you're going to have a line that's minus 240 Phil Hawes, let's say. But there's still that gut feeling that like he hasn't shored up his cardio issues. And when he starts to get tired in the second and third round, Imavov's going to take over. And if this is a close decision and it goes to the scorecards in Abu Dhabi, Nassourdine Imavov's getting it, not Phil Hawes, right? So anyways, I was going to make that dog. It's the dog play for me. Now it's even money. Still my play. Nothing changes there. I'm going to chase him inside the distance. But guys, let's just be real. I am going to be having a sweat for the first 5 minutes because there's no discrediting what Phil Hawes does bring to the table. I think he's a great athlete, not a great fighter. Similar to a Greg Hardy, right? Greg athlete puts it on you in the first round. And then as soon as you punch him in the mouth, it's like, yeah, I don't really want to be here anymore. That's what I'm hoping plays out here. So give me Nassourdine Imavov.
Right on. Guru, who you got?
Yeah, I'm actually siding with Cody here. I'm going with Imavov as well in this one. And for a similar reason, I mean, with the cardio, but I do feel like Phil Hawes, he has shaped up his striking a lot. Like, I do think he's improved it a lot, but I still think he's a little bit choppy, and I don't think he's going to be able to close the distance on Imavov. I mean, they call Imavov this, the Russian sniper for a reason. I think he's going to be landing a lot of shots, like, crosses down the middle and just intercepting shots as Phil Hawes tries to get on the inside. And I think he's going to, really offset a lot of those, big power shots and the loading that Phil Hawes does. And I think it's going to make Phil Hawes really want to wrestle. And we saw in Imavov's last fight, he showed off a little bit of grappling skills in that fight because we really didn't get to see much of it previous to that, but he was able to take down Jordan Williams. He got him in some deep front chokes, almost submitted him. So he showed a different element to his game as well. And I feel like that fight was a good entry into the UFC. I know some people are down on Imavov because of that performance. Like, they talk about how he, got hit a lot, things like that. And he did get hurt in that first round off of the headbutt. But I, like Cody was saying, I don't think Phil Hawes is the guy that's going to, have the gas tank and the durability and the heart to, keep coming forward, eat all those shots and still be in his face in the third round trying to win, taking a lot of damage. I think that it's going to be, if Hawes can, front run, get that early finish, because Imavov, he is a little bit hittable, then Hawes can get the win. But I think if it starts to extend and he starts to have to look to his wrestling, things like that, I think his gas tank is going to go down, really quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised if Imavov got a, either a guillotine or a knockout. So I definitely like the inside the distance for Imavov. And I just feel like he's the better fighter everywhere besides the, power in the first round for Hawes. So I'm going to go with the Imavov on this one for sure.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, I think you guys nailed it, regardless of what side you're taking. Yeah, right? It's like Hawes early can get it done. Imavov, if it makes it beyond that probably round and a half point, is probably going to take over and win this fight. It'd be very surprising for Phil Hawes to be the guy, turning it up second and third round. I just don't see it happening. But you know what? I think I lean with my man Locke here. When you watch the tape on Imavov, Locke, you said the tall man syndrome. The guy just seems very hittable to me. And it's the one thing I can't get over, he's never been knocked out, so we got to give him credit. If you're taking Hawes and thinking he's going to finish him, he's going to have to do what 11 men couldn't do previous. You know what I mean? At the same time, has Imavov gone up against someone with the power of a Phil Hawes? I don't think so. Yeah, so when I think about this fight, I see Imavov getting that chin tested. Man, I don't know how many shots you can take from Phil Hawes, in the first and, probably the first half of the second round. Something tells me, gut feeling, I think Hawes is going to test that chin. He's going to crack him. I think he might finish him. I think he might knock him out. I'm going to take Hawes. The money's getting better on Hawes, which is becoming so much more tempting. If you got Imavov as that good plus money earlier in the week, my hat's off to you. I think that was some good stuff, but this line's, I think is correcting and getting closer to that 50-50. And man, I just, I don't know if I have a strong enough lean. Here's what I do feel like. There's probably no way this fight goes to the scorecards either way. Hawes is going to fade if it gets beyond that, second, third round. And Imavov, if Hawes wins, is probably getting KO'd early on. So I don't see this fight going the distance, but my pick will be Hawes overall. So another banger to kick off the main card. Punahele Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic. I think it's my man Cody up on this one.
This is a really fun fight. The UFC is giving you two undefeated prospects that are young in their careers. You got Punahele Soriano, who's 28 years old, and Dusko's only 26. So they're still young. They still got a ways to go. And it's kind of interesting that they match them up against each other. Now, with Soriano, it's like they did try to give him a nice little slow build. They tried to book him against, not walkover opponents, but he's initially booked to fight Eric Spicely. Anybody watched the Abu Dhabi Warriors card from today? Eric Spicely lasted about 55 seconds, by the way. But they tried to book him against Anthony Hernandez right after that. Two guys who have not had a ton of success in the UFC that would have been nice little building blocks for Soriano, and both times he pulls out due to injury. He was in Las Vegas. I mean, he trains full-time in Extreme Couture, but he was in Las Vegas all summer. And how many cards and fights were they turning out in Vegas? They needed guys like that, but he was injured. So he's coming off a bit of a layoff, and you could look at that two ways. One, he has been banged up, so you don't really know what you're getting. Two, he's still so young in his career that he's going to fix little issues here and there. Now, one issue that I have in him is that I don't think his cardio is all that great. We obviously saw him on Contender Series versus Jamie Pickett. When he's not able to be the hammer and just put the nail in the board right away, it's like maybe he starts to fatigue a bit. He's able to rely on, I would say good ring IQ, and that's just take the fight to the ground and hold him down. But it's a desperation takedown. It's I'm getting tired. I don't want to strike right now. I'm just going to, reactively take you down, hold you down, try to grind some of this clock away. If that doesn't have a Dusko, he's going to be in trouble because Dusko not only has that big power, has that early finishing ability as well, but he seems to be able to carry it a little bit better. Now, I was actually impressed and not impressed in some ways. When Dusko fought, when he was, also on The Ultimate Fighter, he took on Teddy Ash, a Canadian, I'm very familiar with Teddy Ash, fought at light heavyweight and middleweight. A good Canadian. Don't think he's UFC level, but Dusko's surely going to go knock this guy out. I've got Dusko bet. They didn't give me a prop, thank God, because I would have taken him by knockout. And it's like he just went through the motions a little bit. He did open up a nice cut on Teddy Ash. He did land some nice shots, but he was also okay with just holding him against the cage and grinding him. But what I did take away from that is that was his version of pacing himself out. That was his version of getting some deeper waters. And then you see him come to the UFC, the Jaquan fight. He unloads with them with just massive bombs most people don't take. But as soon as Jaquan, who's got one hell of a chin, takes those shots, Dusko just rips him to the ground, takes him to the ground and puts a beating on him. You see some development out of his game. You see that he probably has what I'm going to assume, it's an assumption, is a slightly better cardio edge. And so the way I see this fight playing out is Soriano might be a little bit faster, a little bit crisper, maybe a little bit better of an athlete. But again, it's beyond that first round and that second round is that Soriano hasn't been in a whole lot of fights that have gone deep, right? And when he has, the one time against Jamie Pickett, he looked tired. The Oscar Pachota fight, he didn't look great on the ground, guys. Let's be real. His ground game looked like it was a work in progress, but it did look like he was starting to tire a little bit, and then he gets the knockout. This is another fight where I think it's a good live betting opportunity. Soriano looks really good in the first round, but you can kind of see the writings on the wall that he might fatigue. Dusko is going to keep coming back, and for that reason, that's why I'm going to go with Todorovic to pick up. Could be a decision, which is a nice plus money. Fight goes the distance is plus money. But certainly just Todorovic minus 150 on the money line seems like it would be the play on this particular fight. If Soriano comes out and looks like $1 million and made a lot of improvements, I can't say I'm overly surprised. He does look like an athletic guy. He is training with a great group of guys. He could make those improvements. But Dusko's showing it to you, right? You're seeing it. You don't just have to assume he's getting better. You're seeing the improvements in real time. He's fought way more recently. He's got the better body of work. He's got the better career wins. It's a close enough fight at minus 150. I'm going to have to go with Dusko Todorovic.
Guru, who you got?
Yeah, interesting fight because if you think about it, I mean, on the Contender Series, they both fought guys that it kind of had similar styles to, each other, and they kind of struggled both with that style. Like Dusko kind of did take some big shots. He got backed up to the fence a little bit against Teddy Ash, Puna struggled a little bit with that movement and, kind of finesse striking a Pickett. So on the feet, I do think that both of them could have success. I feel like, when you look at it, I think Dusko Todorovic is probably, the more technical striker, the better mover, things like that. But if Puna can get on the inside and, let those hands go, he's definitely shown that he has that one-punch knockout power. So I do think that Dusko is a little bit hittable. So Puna, I think early on is definitely going to be live to, get a finish in that first round. But I do think that Dusko, when you watch his last fight versus Townsend, it looked like he was improved quite a bit, and he showed a good fight IQ. And if he doesn't get finished just in that first round and plays it smart, I think that he could start to take over the fight because, I just feel like Puna in that fight with Jamie Pickett, he did get real tired and he relied on his wrestling and just kind of, held the position, didn't really look to finish. Whereas with Dusko, I think Dusko's pretty good on the ground, even off his back. I saw him a couple fights be able to sweep, get back up to his feet. So I don't think he's going to let Puna rest in those situations. I think he's going to be able to either sweep and maybe even get a finish on Puna if he's tired enough, or get back up to his feet and just outwork him. So I just think Dusko's a little bit further ahead in his career. So I'm going to go with Todorovic. Maybe by decision, but I could see him getting a finish as well.
Right on. Locke, who you thinking, man?
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed that they're putting these guys up against each other so early in their careers. Yeah, I mean, you got two undefeated guys here that seem to have a bit of potential. Obviously, the one glaring flaw in Puna's game is the cardio issues. He's only been out of the first round, I believe, that one time against Jamie Pickett on the Contender Series. Goes out there and luckily is able to rely on his grappling background to get the fight to the ground and shows good fight IQ to be able to, knows that he's tired and is able to keep Jamie on his back and do some damage there and pull off a decision victory. Now, Todorovic as well. He's only been to a decision one time where he grinded out Teddy Ash pretty much in the clinch position that entire fight. Showed great, awareness in that fight as well, where he was able to just keep his forehead on his chin and his chest and just keep him up against the cage and just really beat him up there. And that's a good thing. That it was very impressive that he was able to do that against a Canadian journeyman like Teddy Ash. Like Cody was saying, the guy's been around the scene for a while now and fought a bunch of guys that were on the up and up. I feel as though, and I might be the only one that's going out there and saying this, I feel like Dusko might have a little bit of a cardio issue himself too. However, I think Puna's a little bit more glaring, and that's the difference here. So I'm interested to see how the fight will look if it does end up hitting the third round. You know what I mean? Will Puna be able to rely on that wrestling and get him down? And as Guru touched on it, Todorovic does have a decent guard game as well too. Is decent off his back, so maybe he's able to pull off some sweeps and get top position that way too. As the week has been going on, man, I've been going back and forth on this pick the entire time. When I initially broke it down, I was on the Puna train, but not to the extent of making a bet. He obviously not as clean and polished as Dusko on the feet. Dusko is very, karate style, bounces on the tip of his toes as much as he does in and out movement, good striking, able to get in and out without getting hit much. But in that first round, I think Puna could be live to touch that chin. It's the later this fight goes that things get a little bit sketchy for a Puna, right? So, man, I'll go with Puna. I'll be the contradictory pick here. I'll go with Puna. I think he ends up pulling off a decision, like maybe survives that second and third round, maybe does enough in that second round, pushing him up against the cage, and I feel like he's going to be the stronger guy in there too. You see the lats on this guy in the weigh-ins? God damn, that guy could fly with those lats out here. But not saying that's the only reason he's going to be the stronger guy here. But I do think he has some strength. It's just, does he have the gas tank to feed those muscles and to feed that gas tank and stay live for 15 minutes? So I'll go on the Puna side here. I think he gets it done via decision. But this is going to be a great fight. Hopefully it's not a complete slop fest in that third round. But I'll go with Puna here. I'll be the contrarian and go on the Puna side.
Well, you're not going to be too contrarian, my man, because I'm on the Puna train as well. It's a fight. Listen, you guys, I don't know if this break just has me craving violence, but I just don't see this fight going to the distance. I think these guys are going to get in there. I think they're going to sling. I think whoever lands that bomb first is going to win this fight. To me, I call it a coin flip. Give me the plus money underdog. I got Puna on this one. I just think he's going to land that shot. At the same time, though, man, Dusko, one of these guys, he touches you, man. He hurts you. Teddy Ash was so lumped up, so cut up. It's an interesting fight. It's going to be a banger. I'm going to tell you right now, you want to win this fight, just sit back, buckle up. It's going to be a great one. But I got Punahele getting that KO. Somebody's O has to go, and I got Punahele getting it done in this one to kick off our main card. And boy, banger alert yet again. We got Joaquin Buckley going up against Alessio Di Chirico. I think it is Guru kicking us off here.
Yeah, I love this fight, actually. It's an interesting fight. I feel like it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a trap fight in terms of betting, because I'm still going to go with Buckley, but I think it's a spot that some people can get very confident in, where it's a little bit of a trickier fight, in my opinion, because this isn't like Impa Kasanganay or even Buckley's last fight, where he's fighting a guy that's relatively inexperienced, stuff like that. At least Chirico, he's had quite a few UFC fights, and he's been in there with a lot better competition, like Mahmoud Muradov, Kevin Holland, and he's went to decisions with those guys where, it could have gone either way, and went to split decisions on the scorecards. And I do feel like, Di Chirico, in his last fight with Zach Cummings, it looked like his hands were a little bit better in terms of he was throwing straighter punches. And we did see Buckley struggle a little bit with that against Kevin Holland. But at the end of it, it's hard to pick a guy, on a 3-fight losing streak against a guy like Buckley, who they're clearly trying to set up for the win here. But I do like, Di Chirico. I think that he's a decent striker. He has definitely good durability. He's never been finished before. We've seen him take some big shots. So that's something that maybe if he could drag Buckley into those later rounds, he could potentially, win some rounds there. But I just think that overall, it's not like Di Chirico has the movement and the range that a guy like Kevin Holland does. So I think Buckley is going to be able to, get on the inside, use those boxing flurries, maybe even hold him against the cage, stuff like that. And I think that I'm not sure he's going to get another highlight reel finish like he's been getting, but I think he's going to get a decision here. So I'm going to go with Buckley to win a decision.
Right on. Lock of the night. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I don't know how Buckley's ever going to be able to live up to that knockout of Impa Kasanganay. It's just not going to happen. And I think the UFC is trying to feed him as much as possible to try to not recreate that kind of knockout, but go out there and give us some more highlight reel finishes, especially on the UFC scene. Now, when's the last time you remember them showing a fighter's last knockout literally the second they're about to fight? If you guys remember when he fought Jordan Wright, literally right after the fighter introductions, right after Bruce Buffer gets out of the cage, they go to the screen and they show him knocking the hell out of Impa Kasanganay. If I'm Jordan Wright and I'm standing in the cage waiting to go fight this guy and looking up at the screen, I'm like, what the hell, guys? I'm already mentally kind of broken stepping in there against the guy who just had the greatest knockout of all time. And now you want me to go fight this guy? Come on, right? So it's clear what the UFC is doing here. You got a guy on a 3-fight losing streak in Alessio Di Chirico who, 3-fight losing streak. He's on the chopping block. Not often, just like Vanessa Melo, not often you get somebody get that 4th shot after 3 straight fights. But it's clear as day that what the UFC is trying to do here. Unfortunately for them, though, Di Chirico has a very good durability. He has a very good chin. The only time we've seen him in real trouble was the last second in his last fight against Zach Cummings, where he's throwing down with Cummings, and then I absolutely believe he did not expect that head kick at all. And we all know the ones that hurt the most are the ones that you don't see coming. And I feel like everything that Joaquin Buckley is going to throw out there, Di Chirico is going to see, but he's not going to be able to do anything about it in terms of stopping that forward pressure of Buckley. Now, I believe that Buckley is absolutely overhyped. I do believe that he's not going to be able to crack that top 5 in the UFC's middleweight division, and I'm looking to fade him. I just don't feel like this is the guy that you can do it with. Di Chirico is a little bit too accepting of his back foot. He allows his opponents to kind of set the pace of the fight. Now, to go out there and lose a striking battle to a guy in Zach Cummings, whose most of victories have come via submission in the grappling realm, it's kind of sketchy for me. And obviously it probably came down to that last kick, literally, as it was 1-1 going into that last round. And unfortunately he loses it due to that, but it's just not a good look. And I feel like this fight's just pretty much going to be Joaquin Buckley marching forward the entire time, throwing bombs, throwing heavy heat, maybe not landing that shot that's going to knock out Di Chirico, but at least do enough in the judges' eyes to get a decision victory. So I love that the fact that Joaquin Buckley's decision line went from plus 265 to plus 300. That casual money's coming in right now where everybody's like, Buckley's going to knock another guy out. This is what the UFC is setting up. But I think they're wrong on this one. I think we'll see Buckley go out there, win a decision here, backing Di Chirico up pretty much the entire time. I think Buckley has decent durability as well too. Obviously, we saw him got like sniped by Kevin Holland in his UFC debut, but I just don't think that Alessio Di Chirico really has that type of striking style. And the fact that he just concedes position so much, I think it's just going to be too much for Di Chirico. So I'm going with Buckley via decision, and I think plus 300 is a great value bet as well too, and a sneaky bet too, especially when you got the public thinking that this guy is just an absolute knockout machine. I do believe he is, but I think that Di Chirico will be able to withstand that power. So I'll go with Buckley via KO, and I think this is a solid spot for him.
Nice. Cody Saftic, how you see it?
Yeah, you know what? Initially, it's very clear what the UFC is doing. We got Buckley, he's the human highlight reel. He's got the craziest KO of all times. We want to build this guy up. You give him the Beverly Hills Ninja, he gets a cool little KO. You want to keep building him. Why would a guy that's got all this momentum on a 2-fight winning streak, only lost a nice little fight where his stock rose against Kevin Holland, who's now being talked in title contention, right? Why is this guy taking on an 0-3 skid? Why is he taking on a guy in Alessio Di Chirico who's been in the UFC for a little bit of time now and just hasn't really shown you anything, nothing memorable certainly. Why would you book that? Because there's that clear narrative. They want one guy to win, but it's not so easy as that. If I'm matchmaking Joaquin Buckley, I want him to fight somebody who's chinny, not somebody who's never been knocked out. Yeah, Zach Cummings almost knocked him out. But let's just look for what it is that Di Chirico's got a pretty good chin. He's fought in good guys. He's been hit. He's weathered it. You could have booked this guy against many other guys. Gerald Mearshart. There's a fight where he gets another highlight reel KO. Eric Anders, who's a human punching bag in there against strikers, would have been a fun fight. Darren Stewart, Carl Roberson. You book this guy against Trevin Giles. You give this guy Dricus Duplessis, and you are guaranteed a KO on one side or the other and a fight of the night. Yet you book him against Alessio Di Chirico, who routinely goes to decisions, very usually lackluster decisions, oftentimes boring decisions, doesn't really do a whole lot. That's not the sexy look to get your guy another KO. That's not the sexy look to have all the fans raving about this guy. What it is, it's a dangerous fight because you're supposed to win and you're supposed to mess him up bad. And if that's not the case, then you all of a sudden don't look very good. But let's just look at these decisions that Di Chirico's having. So he's won the fight over Gareth McClellan and Julian Marquez, both by split decision. They were just close fights. But that's the theme there, is that he's always in close fights. So when he lost to Kevin Holland, right, he lost a unanimous decision to Kevin Holland. This one's interesting to me. Of the 12 media members that scored it, 90% took Di Chirico. I'm talking Combat Press, MMA Brazil, Fansided, MMA Junkie twice, Sherdog, MMA Mania, Bloody Elbow, twice, Sherdog again. They all scored the fight 29-28, and 4 of them 30-27, Alessio Di Chirico over Kevin Holland a year and a half ago. The fight with Makhmud Muradov, right? Again, he loses a unanimous decision. You've got media members scoring it for him. MMA Brazil scores it for him. MMA Junkie, WrestlingObserver.com, all score the fight for Alessio Di Chirico. And then let's not forget the Zach Cummings fight, where he's actually about to win the fight.
Yes.
And then gets head kicked. In a different world, he actually won those 3 fights with different sets of judges sitting there. He has a win over Kevin Holland, huge, right? He has that win over Zach Cummings where he didn't land that last second Hail Mary KO as a buzzer beater, or the dropping him that one's in the decision. Di Chirico's not all that bad. Not impressive, not exciting, not doing anything that'll get your panties wet, but he's very serviceable. And the UFC's now matched Buckley, a guy that could be a little suspect. He's relying on these KOs. Jordan Wright is relatively competitive for about 3 minutes until he gets hit, right? It's why could Alessio Di Chirico not fluster him? He's got 3 times UFC experience. He's fought in the better guys. He's been around. He's durable. He's still getting a little bit better. Cardio leaves something to be desired. But Buckley's cardio is not exactly great either, right? If he's not knocking you out, he's sucking wind because he's throwing heavy bombs all the time, right? So it's in some regards a bit of a dangerous fight. And so I got Buckley, and I don't want to take that dog play on Di Chirico. But beyond all that, I know these guys talked about it as well, Guru and Locke, is fight goes the distance, I think, right? Buckley's KO power it looks phenomenal because of what he just did to 2 guys. He just bodied 2 guys that really weren't on that level. Di Chirico's been in there with tough guys. He's been hit. He's rolled with it. If he can just lose a decision, it's plus 300. It's craziness. And flip side of that, if Buckley is a fraud and Buckley's not who he thought he is, Di Chirico's going to win a decision. He's not submitting him. He's not knocking him out. He's going to win a decision. So you'd be covered. You'd be covered if Buckley's not all that good. It's a decision win. Okay, cool. And if Buckley is still, the victor, I'm not discrediting Di Chirico's durability. So sign me up for Joaquin Buckley, sign me up for Buckley by decision. And I don't think that he's that top piece of the parlays. He's in the parlays. Don't get me wrong. He is the pick. But I don't know that I bank all my faith on him.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you totally, Cody. Again, I'm gonna end up taking Buckley, right? But yeah, Chirico, man, he's getting a little bit slept on here, a little bit disrespected. It's definitely as far as the implied odds, obviously the guy that's been around longer in the UFC and the guy that's experienced, fought the far level better of competition. But I think Buckley's gonna go in there. I think he's gonna do his thing. But yeah, I think this fight plays out pretty close. And I mean, Buckley's a big power guy. He's got that freak power. He's got the crazy KOs, right? There's a first time for everything. I mean, if Zach Cummings can shin kick you upside the dome so bad that, you're stumbling all over, losing the fight, I mean, who's to say Buckley can't do that in the first round and then, jump on him and finish him? Zach Cummings may have jumped on him and finished him if it wasn't the absolute end of the round. But man, like you said, Cody, this is a guy that, very close to just being a totally different story here. Absolutely on the chopping block. Alessio Chirico needs this win like anybody right now needs a win. We know the UFC is looking to cut a lot of people loose. I'm not going to be surprised if Chirico somehow pulls this win out. Could be one of those, Cody, you got a term for it. I'm not going to steal your hype here, but, one of those apple pie shitters. So I'm going to take Buckley. The pick is Buckley, but I got kind of a funky feeling about this one. So I don't know, man. I as much as I want to maybe parlay Buckley, I might just sit back because I do kind of have a funky feeling. So here we go. Moving on, man, the return of Santiago Ponzinibbio against Jingliang Li. And I think it's my man Locke kicking us off here.
Yeah, minus 300 for a guy who's had as much of a layoff for Santiago Ponzinibbio. And I don't care how good he looked against Neil Magny. Like, you still got to have some question marks regarding that price tag on him. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's massively talented. But when you watch back some of his fights, he's having closer fights than you're expecting against guys like Mike Perry, he should absolutely go out there and just style on. I mean, Mike Perry, we already know what his game plan is just come forward and try to land some big bombs on you, have some combinations and stuff. But that seems like a quintessential type of matchup for a guy like Santiago Ponzinibbio to just pick apart Mike Perry, but that was a much tougher fight than it needed to be. Then he goes out there and he finishes Neil Magny in the fourth round in a beautifully, game plan fight where he just targeted the legs from the get-go, pretty much took them out from under Neil Magny and just, followed up with punches afterwards and gets the finish late. Again, minus 300 though. I'm not going out there and parlaying Santiago. I think the spot here, and I've already played this, is the over 1.5. Now I got it at minus 165. It's all the way up to minus 200 now. We're seeing a little bit of buyback coming down to like minus 195, minus 190 range. And I still think it's a good spot. I think we see these guys and on paper, it looks like these guys are just going to go to war and we could potentially see the under 1.5 hit. But more often than not, these guys are going over that 1.5 mark and more of their finishes are coming later in fights. Both these guys are hella durable. Like the last time we seen Santiago get finished was 5 years ago against Lorenz Larkin. The last time we seen Li Jingliang get finished was via submission to Keita Nakamura over 5 years ago as well too. Now we've seen Li dropped a bunch of times, but he has that wherewithal and that awareness to be able to stay in the fight. He does a good job of just nullifying any type of damage coming back his way, gets back into the fight, and then even I believe it was in the David Zawada fight, gets dropped and still comes back and gets the finish of his own. I mean, the guy is great. He's durable, but I think on a technical standpoint, Ponzinibbio is the guy. Like I truly think that he can technically outstrike Li as long as no bomb comes out there and just absolutely flatlines him early in that fight. I think this is his fight to win via decision. I like Santiago. I want to see him a little bit more active. We know that he had all those infections and injuries that he was dealing with, which is why he was off for so long. But, doing the work that he's doing over there at ATT now, he has a great training camp behind him. Mike Brown is a huge believer in his skills as well, too. It's unfortunate that he was off as long as he was, but I think this is a good fight for him to come back to get his feet wet again so that he can go back on that campaign of entering the top 10, entering the top 5. He was a hot prospect after that Neil Magny fight. I mean, now look at Neil Magny. The guy's headlining the next card against Michael Chiesa, beat Li Jingliang 2 fights ago, beats Robbie Lawler. So he's like the hot thing now. And a lot of people are almost forgetting that Santiago used to pretty much beat up on him almost 2 years ago now. So I think you got to bring a little bit of realism to this in terms of knowing that minus 300 is not the correct price tag here. If you're value hunting, Li Jingliang is obviously the way that you want to go here. But I think the spot that's safest, in my opinion, is the over 1.5. Like I expect these guys to throw some punches and throw some bungalows, but I believe in their durability to at least last 7.5 minutes. So I'm going with the over 1.5. I would side with Ponzinibbio. The decision prop isn't too bad either, but I could absolutely see a late finish in this fight too. But I'll go with Santiago. That over 1.5 is just so nice, though. I know it's a little bit chalky at this point, but even fight starts round 3. If you want those fight starts props, I think that's the way to go. So once again, I'll go with Santiago here.
Good stuff, Locke. Cody Saftic, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the universe is telling me to stay away from Ponzinibbio. Whether you take that shot on Jingliang or not, that's your own choice. But with minus 320 on the straight money line for Ponzinibbio, you look at the 7-fight winning streak, you look at how good he's looked against Neil Magny, and I think that's baked into the line. Neil's on a great run, and Ponzinibbio knocked out Neil in the 4th round, too. Cardi looked good in that fight. 7-fight winning streak, put himself into title contention. And, yeah, sure, he's had 2.5 years off. He's had 2 years off. But, the skill's still there. My problem is that he comes back now as a 34-year-old man. So, when we were seeing him fight before, that's really prime of his life. But hearing him talk about the setbacks is just so depressing, about how staph infection almost took my knee and the doctors told me I'd never going to fight ever again. And I have all these nagging injuries and all these, and now his outlook now is, this is the exact quote. And the quote it's important to me because of exactly who they've given him as an opponent, right? His quote is, and this is just from yesterday, I want to throw down. Doesn't matter who it will be against. I just want to put a body in front of me. Let's make weight and brawl. The change was no problem. I just want to show my work. No matter the fighter, I'll win. I'll knock him out and show the world I'm the next champion in my division. My game plan is to punch him in the face, make him feel a lot of pain until he cannot take it anymore. Buddy, the guy they give you is thinking the same thing because Jingliang fights like a bruiser. He comes forward, he puts it on you. 7 times in his career, has featured a knockdown. 3 times in his career, both men have been knocked down. You can hurt this guy. He keeps coming. Now, one thing about Jingliang is that he's never been knocked out. He's been knocked down. But if you don't take him out, he's just going to keep coming at you. And you see the same thing in that Zaleski dos Santos fight, Elizu Zaleski dos Santos. It's like in the 3rd round when Zaleski starts to tire and becomes hittable, you have Lee coming at him. Zawada in the 3rd round, Zawada's taking some damage and he's starting to wear down. Lee's coming at him. He's forcing these 3rd round stoppages because he's just not stopping. So now you have Ponzinibbio. Probably he is the superior fighter. He's got the better hands. He's got the better speed. He got the better versatility. He's got the better output. But ultimately, it's like if Lee's just maybe not output, I take that one back. But if Lee's just storming forward on him the whole time and Ponzinibbio doesn't take this guy out, nobody else has been taking this guy out. He's willing to poke your eyes out just to submit, just to get out of guillotines. He is a win at all costs kind of guy. It's a dangerous fight. And it's a dangerous fight when you're coming off a 2-year-long absence. It's a dangerous fight when you're returning to the sport now at 34 with that much wear and tear. And it's a dangerous fight considering how much success Mike Perry had, using nothing other than a brute bruising tactic. Come forward, try to mix it up with this guy. Draw him into your game. Standing at range, exchanging leg kicks and jabs, not going to work. Not going to work. You need to force his hand. You need to go after him. And Lee does that almost as good as anybody. And so with Santiago Ponzinibbio, it's not that he can't deal with it. Maybe he can. It's that there's some question marks he needs to answer for me still, right? So I definitely want to watch the 1st round, and then I'll see what the live betting line is on either side. The fact that he's 320 now, if he wins the 1st round over Lee, it's not bettable. If he wins the 1st round at Lee and he looks compromised or looks like he's slowing down or Lee looks like he's gaining some momentum, maybe it's another live betting spot. But I just think at minus 320, it really suggests he's biggest favorite on the card, right? Or one of anyways. He is biggest favorite on the card. Does he really scream this is your most confident play on the entire card is Santiago Ponzinibbio, that he would win this fight 8.5 times out of 10? Maybe, but you got to see the version of him that comes back to the UFC, not the version that you remember beating Neil Magny a while ago. So, I would have to say all week I've been hesitant on it, but now it's starting to feel like a dog or pass. I only have 2 other dogs on the card, which Imavov is not even a dog anymore. So, it's a card that they've got priced pretty well. I just don't think they've priced this fight particularly well. And for that reason, maybe there's some value on the other side.
Boy, understand what you're saying totally. Guru, what do you think?
I agree, man. This line definitely kind of scares me because like Cody was saying, Ponzinibbio, he's coming back. He's 34 years old now. And a lot of his style is predicated on, being athletic because he has his hands down in the pocket and he's always, faking and feigning. He's really good with the distance control, with the low kicks. He has a good shot selection. But, when you have your hands down in the pocket like that and you're, using your eyes and, trying to avoid shots, when you get a little bit older, a little bit slower, you're going to start to, potentially get hit. And like you guys said, the Leech is one of these guys, man, where, I mean, when he gets hurt, he even gets more dangerous in some fights. He'll come back and he's really, swinging for the fences. And, he has a lot of fights where he gets finished, comes back and get the win. But another thing about Leech that I'm not sure about is it seems like he performs way better when he's in China, man. I mean, a lot of his knockouts are over there. Like when you watch him fight Alessio Zaleski dos Santos, I mean, his movement looks great. His striking looks really, really good, like really sharp, probably the most crisp technical he's ever looked. And then he goes and fights Neil Magny. I don't really think he had, the same type of performance and, striking, where I do think a lot of that could have obviously been COVID as well, because in China at that point, I think it was like really bad, where that was when Wheelie fought Joanna. So I think they like moved her to like several different countries and all that was going on at that point. So, I mean, maybe he had kind of had a bad training camp when he fought Neil Magny. So I do think that, this is a scary fight for a guy like Ponzinibbio, who we have seen get dropped with a cross against Larkin. We've seen him, get, stunned by guys like Mike Perry. So I think the line is, way off. I feel like it should be, a lot closer. But at the end of it, I'm still going to side with Ponzinibbio. I just think that he's going to probably be able to, implement his game. I mean, Neil Magny actually had a lot of success with the leg kicks against the Leech. I thought it was going to be the other way around. So potentially Ponzinibbio could implement that too. And I just think he's going to, be the crisper guy on the feet unless the Leech can find that finish. And so I'm going to go with Ponzinibbio, but I'm kind of, nervous about that one.
Yeah, boy, I tell you what, Guru, that's what it is for me, man. Just nervousness. Like, I feel like this fight is lined at where it would have been if we were in early 2018 and Ponzinibbio's on a 7-fight win streak. Even then, I might be saying this line's a little too wide. But then we take into account this layoff, the health issues. I mean, the guy coming back 34 years old, missed out on, as a welterweight, just probably the primest years of his prime. This just screams red flags on so many levels to me. I'm going to gladly pass this fight, use it. I'm going to let Li Jingliang be the litmus test to tell me who is Ponzinibbio now. Is he a ghost of himself? Is he a shell of his former self? If you listen, hopefully he comes out there and is the same old guy. Looks great, has overcome everything, and, we can bet him in the future, make some money off him, something like that. But if someone's told me that they were putting a bet on Jingliang, I wouldn't think it was crazy. I mean, at this point, considering the amount of hurdles to get back to the octagon, like Cody said, man, a guy, this doctors are telling this guy, you'll never fight again. Yet here he is. And I mean, hats off to him. I'm sure it was a lot of work and a lot of doubt and a lot of things to overcome to get back to this point. But he's just got to show me he's still that same guy before I'm putting my hard-earned wager on a guy like Ponzinibbio with this much time off. So the pick is Ponzinibbio, but total pass for me. All right, co-main event. We got Carlos Condit and Matt Brown. I think it is Cody Saftic getting us going.
Yeah, I'm going to back Carlos Condit in this spot. This is a great fight in the perspective that the UFC is not taking these aged veterans and feeding them to a young up-and-comer. They're at least giving these guys both a winnable fight, and that it should be entertaining. Is it going to be entertaining the way you probably remember these guys back in their prime? No. They're both much different versions of themselves. But the version of Carlos Condit that you see before you today is at least still got some serviceable skills, I think. His striking's still good. The biggest thing is that with his frame and his defensive wrestling, most guys can just take him down if they want. Once they do get him to the ground, they're just more physically imposing. They've given him relatively bad matchups when you consider guys like Michael Chiesa and guys like Cowboy Oliveira, and they all have grappling advantages over him. They don't want to stand with him. They take him down. Last time against Court McGee, everybody sits here and we all talk about the fact that finally they've given him a winnable fight, but Court probably just goes out there and wrestles him down to the ground, takes the easy path to victory, and that would be it. Court chooses not to do that. Court chooses to stand in front of him and strike with him. And that's bad news because Condit's still got some decent hand speed. He's got good kicks, good knees up the middle. He loves to work the body, something that's going to do really well against Matt Brown, who's notoriously got a soft body. And he's got great variety in his strikes. When he hits a flow state and he's comfortable in there, he's a very versatile and dangerous striker. The problem is that he doesn't hit that flow state anymore because you're constantly taking him down. Now he's got to worry about the takedown. Now he's not letting his hands go. Now he's not letting his kicks go. And then you take him down again. When Court didn't take him down, he achieved that flow state. When he achieved that flow state, he started to pick him apart and look good. Matt Brown has a wrestling advantage. Matt Brown has a grappling advantage. My thing is that I don't think Matt Brown's going to A, use it, and B, I don't think Matt Brown has that hellacious cardio that he used to have in years prior, that he's going to be able to just put on some type of pace for 15 minutes. So at some point, it's going to end up being a striking battle. And with Matt Brown, the power's still there. No doubt about it. We've seen his last 2 wins, Ben Saunders, Diego Sanchez. Do those guys have chin problem? Potentially, but they're nice knockout wins. With Carlos Condit, he's never been finished. He did technically get TKO by Tyron Woodley. His leg gave out. But outside of that, he's never been chin checked. He's never been knocked out clean. He's never been submitted clean. The guy is, very, very durable, and he's a finishing machine. So when Matt Brown doesn't knock him out in the first round, I think Carlos Condit's going to start to take over and start to piece him up a little bit. And again, with Brown, he's got those 2 knockouts. And then you see the Miguel Beza fight, right? He does hurt Beza. He does, sting him. A nice little elbow over the top as well. But Beza's young, he's athletic, he's got the speed advantage. And when he doesn't knock him out, then the skill discrepancy becomes obvious. Not skill per se, but because there's so much speed, such a speed difference between the two, Beza just starts intercepting him and hitting him at will. And Brown never really moved his head to begin with, but now he's just an open target. And now he gets hit and now he gets put down. And it's a disastrous performance for him. But, at least he hurt Beza, right? You take that away from him. He's 40 years old. He's had a plethora of injuries. 4 years ago, he's talking about early onset CTE, it's so dreary as well, because today MMA Fighting released that article on Spencer Fisher. Not sure if anybody's had a chance to read that, but some really sad stuff, but definitely puts things into perspective. And Matt Brown's followed that career. He was never a title challenger, but he fought all the best guys. He sustained a lot of damage. He gave you a ton of fight of the night worthy performances, but now he's 40 years old and now it's catching up with him a little bit. So I had a theory on it, is that he was supposed to fight Carlos Condit. This was like a year and a half ago, right? And he pulls out of that Carlos Condit fight. Sorry, this is 2 years now. He pulls out of the Carlos Condit fight with a torn ACL. It's listed as a knee injury, but actually what happened is he had ruptured a bunch of discs in his back. So there's this guy in Ohio, right? He's like he's a power weightlifting legend, right? His name is Louis Simmons. Great documentaries on him. Very fascinating character. Louis Simmons is known for steroids and all that, this jazz, but mostly just power. Louis Simmons actually had also broken his back once upon a time and came back from that back injury to put up world record power lifting titles. He had closely worked with Kevin Randleman and Mark Coleman back in the day. And if you remember those guys, they were just jacked up, all muscle, no cardio. So Matt Brown, through Mark Coleman, ends up linking up with Louis Simmons. And he changes his routine completely. It's all about rehabbing the back. And when you see him come in against Beza, he's a lot bigger, he's a lot thicker, and he's slow. And that cardio wasn't there. That athleticism wasn't there. That speed wasn't there. And he did have the power. He hurt Beza, but he was also a sitting target, and he ended up getting knocked out. I think that's what happens against Carlos Condit. He'll come in. He'll give you a good 3-4 minutes. But one of those epic comebacks where he comes back. Remember Tim Means? He's getting lit up, and he comes back. The Eric Silva fight. Oh, man, he's done. He's down and now, and he comes back. When that no longer happens anymore, now you're 40, now you're an aged athlete. Those comeback stories, they're few and far between. When that doesn't happen and he's stuck and he's forced to strike with Condit for a few rounds, I think Condit takes over and either gets the decision or, TKOs him late in the second or into the third.
Right on. Guru, spit that hot fire.
Yeah, man, this is hardcore fans co-main event. And they both said this week, I think Matt Brown was more talking. I don't know if it's the last fight on his contract or he just is talking about retirement, but I definitely know that it's Carlos's last fight on his contract. So, it could, be a good send-off for both guys here, potentially. But, I'm going to lean with, what Cody was saying. I just feel like when you think about Carlos Condit's career and what he's known for, it's like movement, controlling the distance, the body attack. And against Matt Brown, Matt Brown, he's going to have to get on the inside, which I think is going to be really hard to do against a guy like Carlos Condit. And, with his older age being slower, things like that, he's going to have to take some damage to get on the inside. And I just don't think he's going to be able to take that damage, especially to the body. And people are talking about, the Matt Brown being able to get takedowns, things like that. And the only guy he's really taken down in recent memory is Ben Saunders. And when you watch that fight, the first round when Matt Brown took him down, Ben Saunders was able to, threaten him with several submissions. I feel like he actually arguably won the round off of his back. And then in the second round, you see Matt Brown, clinch up with him, and Ben Saunders is real confident. He just pulls guard and ends up getting knocked out with the elbows, where I think Condit is not going to, be comfortable off his back, where at least in other fights he has been. But you see him, in the Chiesa fight, the Alex Oliveira fight, he is creating scrambles, things like that, working to get back on top. So I feel like he's going to be able to, even if Matt Brown takes him down, have the superior jiu-jitsu. Matt Brown has been submitted, I think, 10 times. Hasn't been a while, but I think Condit is at least going to be able to get back up to his feet if he doesn't submit him. And I just feel like he's going to end up finishing him with that body shot. So I'm going to go with Condit here in this one. I think he is going to be a little bit more confident too after, winning that fight with Court McGee. And I just think, he's better than Matt Brown. He's better than Matt Brown now, and he was probably better than Matt Brown, in their primes too. So got to go with Carlos.
I feel you there. Lock of the night. Tell us why it's all about Matt Brown.
Shit, this guy knows where I'm going already. So, once again, I feel like I'm the contrarian on this whole freaking card. Like, we've agreed on a bunch of favorites throughout the card, and I did take a couple shots on the dogs here. And Matt Brown's another one. Now, I feel like there's a lot of recency bias baked into this again. He had a great performance against Court McGee last time, who allowed Carlos Condit to play the Carlos Condit game. He allowed him to stay at that kicking range. He allowed him to just get comfortable, switch stances, spinning shit, whatever it is, doing the Carlos Condit thing. But we know what Matt Brown is. Matt Brown's that guy that stays in your face. Matt Brown's that guy that doesn't let you breathe. And I know historically he hasn't really been that takedown type of guy, but let's be real about Carlos Condit's takedown defense. It's not there. It's really not that good. And I feel like Matt Brown will be able to go out there and get these takedowns and do some good work from on top. Now, if you want to talk about Carlos Condit's submission, the last time he submitted somebody 13 years ago against Carlo Prater in the WEC. So he hasn't even pulled off a submission in the UFC for as long as he's been in the UFC. Yeah, he's active off of his back, and the closest we've ever seen him to a submission as of late was against Michael Chiesa, where he throws up an armbar, almost gets it, and then Chiesa explodes out of it. Now, my concern here is obviously the durability of Matt Brown and the cardio of Matt Brown, but I feel like this is closer to a 50-50 fight. I feel like Carlos Condit's not able to get comfortable when you have Matt Brown in your face, in your space, pushing you up against the cage or getting you down, whatever it is. I just don't feel like we'll see that Condit thing. Now, I feel like this whole fight's going to be like Matt Brown winning the entire time, and then Condit probably lands something and puts him up. But is that really the side that you want to be betting for on a favorite, like at slight chalk money? I don't think so. I'd rather go with the plus money here and knowing that a guy's going to bring the pressure, bring the pace, and stay in your face. And I know that's what we're going to get from Matt Brown. Now, this isn't Miguel Baeza that he's going up against. He's going up against another guy that's 36, who's going to be 37 in a couple months. Matt Brown just turned 40 like a week ago, not even. So he just hit his 40s. Still, there's no shade about it that both guys are older. They're definitely past their prime. We're definitely not going to see Carlos Condit in a title shot anytime soon. But I feel like everybody's just so enamored with what we saw last time from Carlos Condit that they forget that he was on like a 6-fight losing streak or whatever it was. Let's not forget that, people. So I know the durability is a question of Matt Brown's, but I still feel like he's going to go out there, be able to implement that type of pressure, and yeah, just pull off a decision victory here. The one thing I will give Carlos Condit, super durable. Like the guy can take a shot, the guy can take a bunch of punches, but I think that we see Matt Brown just continuously stay on him and not let him breathe. Last time Carlos Condit finished somebody, Thiago Alves. That was his last win before Court McGee. Goes out there, breaks the nose of Thiago Alves. They stopped that fight in between rounds. Before that, Martin Kampmann. He goes out there and Max Holloway's him. That was a 5-round main event. He goes out there and finishes him in the 4th round with a barrage of punches. And then before that, it was like 10 years ago, a flying knee against Dong Young Kim. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the durability is a little bit of a question mark for me with Matt Brown. But at plus 150, I think it's a solid spot in a fight that I believe is closer to 50-50, given the type of pace, pressure, and style that Matt Brown brings to the game. Now, I wish Condit wasn't as durable as he is, because it would be a little bit safer to be like, okay, Matt Brown could probably get this done in 1 or 2 rounds. But Condit has a legendary chin, never been knocked out. It's been absolutely insane seeing him take the shots that he does. So, no, I don't think Matt Brown's going to go out there and put him out, but I do think he has the chops to go out there, push him up against the cage, make it a dirty fight, and not let Carlos Condit do Carlos Condit shit. You know what I mean? Which is the spinning stuff, the flying stuff, the kicking, the switching of stances. That's not Matt Brown. Matt Brown's going to stay in your face and make you uncomfortable. So I'll go with Matt Brown via decision. Go for it, Cody.
I just want to hit a quick counter argument here. All right. So with Carlos Condit, he's on a 5-fight losing streak which Locke brought up. 5-fight losing streak. This guy looks abysmal. They book him against Mickey Gall, of all people. And Condit pulls out of the fight. He takes a 2-year-long absence. He comes back to fight Court McGee. 5-fight losing streak, 2-year-long absence. You see, oh shit, the rust is coming off. Oh shit, he's getting comfortable. Oh shit. Now, as a human being, any human being who had suffered that much losing, 5 straight fights, you haven't won a fight in years. You haven't won a fight since the Thiago Alves got robbed against Robbie Lawler for the title, by the way. But he hasn't won a fight since Thiago. Your confidence is dead shot, man. Now you're the underdog against Court McGee. You haven't fought in 2 years, and you see that fight was 3 months ago. So would you not expect him, now second fight back from long layoff, with some confidence, just 3 months turnaround, took no damage, would you not expect to see a better version of Carlos Condit than you did against Court McGee? Yeah, it would be reasonable. Matt Brown got knocked the fuck out, right? Then took 7 months off, didn't get any younger in that 7 months. Are you expecting to see a better version of him than you did against Beza? No, that was as good as you were going to get. So I'm not trying to change your guys' mind. I'm just saying for the audience out there, we love a great debate, right? That's why we all come together. We've agreed on a lot of picks.
For sure.
This one we don't. So there's the fire. But now next week when we do the show, which is on like Monday, right? We got to record it Tuesday. One of us will have egg on our face. I'm hoping it's you guys, not me. My boy Guru. It's me and you against Bleed and Lock. Bleed, where are you sitting? You're the deciding factor.
Let me throw one more thing.
Okay, go to Lock.
Let me get one more thing in there.
Let's hear Lock's counterpoint.
If we see Court McGee go out there and attempt any takedowns, are we even talking about Carlos Condit right now? Like, let's be honest. Right? It's styles. It's all styles. And I feel like Matt Brown has that style to make Carlos Condit uncomfortable. I see your side, and obviously the durability, I've addressed it. I think that's a huge concern here for Brown. But in a 50-50 fight, I got to go with the guy that I know is going to be winning the fight until he's probably not. Right? So
the last thing I want to throw on there, and then we can definitely move on, is that when Carlos Condit defeated Court McGee, he effectively ran to a 100% ratio of wins over guys who have died from drug addiction, right? Matt Brown, name the immortal for a reason, died of a drug overdose. Carlos Condit, he sees guys up all day. Okay, so if you have a drug problem and you're at home, there are people you can reach out to. There are people here for you. No disrespect. Just on your way to seek help, don't fight Carlos Condit is all I'm saying.
No doubt. Well, I tell you what, guys, I'm going to take Carlos Condit. Locke, I think you bring up some good points about Matt Brown and the takedown, but man, I got to keep it real. I don't see 40-year-old gray-haired Matt Brown going in there and all of a sudden being like the next coming of Habib. You know what I'm saying? Not saying he needs to do that, but I just think this fight's going to play out on the feet. And when it comes down to that, if that's how I'm seeing it, I think Condit's going to be the more effective, probably the more output. I just think he's going to be the sharper, crisper guy. I think he's going to be a step ahead of Matt Brown. Man, surprisingly, Carlos Condit is only 36, about to be 37. It feels like I've been watching this guy so long he could be 40. And honestly, at one point on that losing streak, I had this guy very, very faded. Like, I didn't think Carlos Condit had it anymore. Man, came off the break. Be what it will. Court McGee did go out there and fight the worst game plan possible. So maybe we're giving Condit a little too much shine here, but he did go out there, did what he needed to do. I thought he looked rejuvenated. I thought he looked better. I thought he looked like a ghost of Pete Condit, but I still think Condit at this point is good enough to beat 40-year-old Matt Brown. But I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Brown gets it done. Both guys are nearing the finish line. We got one last point from a man, Locke.
Doesn't need to be Khabib. He could just be Sarah Alpar and still get the fucking get it down. Just saying.
Our boy Carlos, so dirty. All right. Well, you know what? We got to get off this fight. We got to get to the main event here. We got Max Blessed Holloway going up against Calvin Kattar. I don't even know who goes first after that debate. Who do we got up here?
Let's go with Guru.
Let's go, Guru.
I'll go, man. Yeah. I mean, main event. Like I said earlier, it's weird seeing Max Holloway not in a title fight. Not on a pay-per-view. He's fighting, kind of the cement his position, I guess, as the number one contender. Even though I feel like unless Volkanovski loses that fight, he's probably not going to get a title shot for a while here. But I'm actually going to go with Calvin Kattar in this fight. I think that when you look at it, I just see two guys that kind of have a similar style. I mean, Max Holloway, I will give him credit in his last fight. He did, throw a lot more kicks. He dropped Volkanovski with the head kick. And, that was a good adjustment because we haven't really seen him throw kicks in many of his other fights in the UFC. But, what do we really know Max for? I mean, he's the guy, that pointed at the ground against Ricardo Lamas, that gets in your face and tries to box you up, man. He's not really a guy that moves around. He's not really a big kicker. So I think that, a lot of people point to certain losses that Calvin Kattar had, like Renato Moicano when he lost to Zabit. But those guys aren't going to be fighting how Max fights, at least not in my opinion. I don't think Max is going to all of a sudden come in here with a kick and move type of game plan or, jab and stay away. I mean, Max is a guy that wants to get in your face, and I think he wants to, embrace that war and try to get into it and beat Kattar at, what he wants to do. But I just see Kattar, I think he definitely has the reach advantage, and both these guys, they're similar in height. I mean, it looked like Holloway was maybe a little bit taller, but it was hard to tell with the hair and all that from Holloway. But I think that just Kattar, he's a sharper boxer. One thing that Max struggles with, if you watch the fight with Dustin Poirier, you watch the fight with Volkanovski, is he doesn't really do well with guys that have a really good jab, like guys that could start boxing combinations. I think Kattar is just the sharper boxer. I think that he's faster, he hits harder. And I mean, Max Holloway, he's never got dropped or anything like that, but he's absorbed the most strikes in UFC history, man. Eventually, that's going to start to add up. And I feel like this fight, it's going to look similar to the fight with Dustin Poirier, where, early on, I definitely think Kattar is going to be getting the better of the exchanges, potentially hurting, rocking Max a little bit. But I think that Max is going to bring it back in those middle rounds and try to change the tide. And that's where we're going to learn a lot about Calvin Kattar. We're going to see if he's, actually like a bona fide threat to the title or not. Because if he can, if he could finish Max early in the fight, I mean, that'll be a huge statement, right? But if he can also, win those early 2 rounds and then find a way to, survive that onslaught from Max, maybe win one of those last 3 rounds, win a decision, that'll be big too. But I just feel like Kattar, he's getting a little bit not disrespected, because I do think a lot of people are picking him, but I think certain people are seeing this fight like as a step down in competition for Max, whereas I don't really necessarily agree with that. I feel like Kattar's a guy that can go in there and compete with the Volkanovskis, a lot of these people in the division. I think he's one of the best strikers in that division, especially for 5 rounds. So I'm going to go with Kattar to win a decision in this one, but I wouldn't even be shocked if he was the first person to get Max out of there. I just think that he's, on an upward trajectory, and Max, I don't think he's on the way down, but I don't necessarily see him being a champion again or anything like that. So I'm going to go with Kattar.
Ooh, boy. Lock of the night. Who you got?
So I remember my second appearance on the show was the Glover Teixeira and Thiago Santos fight. And I'm like, I can't wait to get to the main event. And I hope all these guys pick Thiago Santos. And I'm coming with that fight with Glover Teixeira. And then we all agreed on Glover Teixeira. And what happened? Glover Teixeira goes out there and gets a dominant victory. Now, this time around, I think we might all be on the same side here with Calvin Kattar, because I love me some Calvin Kattar again. Because now, let's just talk about stylistically how Max Holloway has matched up with his past couple of opponents. Let's just throw away the Alexander Volkanovski fights and the Dustin Poirier fights since he lost them. Frankie Edgar, 4'0", cannot close that distance, cannot be able to get any of his game off. Max Holloway does a good job of maintaining that distance, using his striking, using his, in my opinion, his flawed striking defense to be able to stay safe in that fight. Then the Brian Ortega fight. Brian Ortega didn't know how to throw a punch at that point in time. Now he looks great against Korean Zombie. Definitely revolutionized his game. But Max Holloway was able to take advantage of that bar, like no question about it. Jose Aldo, probably one of the best technical strikers that he's fought, has no cardio. His cardio falls off after that 2.5 round mark. And we saw Jose Aldo land and tag Holloway a couple times in that fight. But obviously the gas tank fails him, and he ends up finishing him in the 3rd round in both of their fights. Anthony Pettis, we know how fragile and horrible his gas tank is. He goes out there and beats him too. Ricardo Lamas, not a striker or anything like that. This is the first time he's fighting somebody his height or higher than him since he fought Cole Miller. And I think that's going to be not the deciding factor, but a good reason as to why Calvin Kattar will be a little bit more successful than past opponents of Max Holloway. He's a much more technical striker here. I think he has more power in his hands, and it could look like the Dustin Poirier fight to a certain extent, where the volume might be in Max Holloway's favor, but the damage, like I talked about in that Wu Yanan and Joselyne Edwards fight, the damage is clearly going to be on Kattar's side. He packs a punch. He has beautiful elbows too. Just ask Jeremy Stevens. I mean, I truly think that this is the coming out party for Kattar. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from Max Holloway. The kid's still 29 years old. He's absorbed 900 strikes, which is absolutely insane. But I still think he still has that. I don't think he's fallen off. I still think he's in his prime. But stylistically, this is a very difficult matchup for him. Now, people want to say, he went out there and started kicking game against Volkanovski. I just think that was a direct response to that first fight against Volkanovski, where the entire fight was pretty much Volkanovski starting with the leg kicks, letting Max Holloway come in, and then he bombs on him with the combo combinations. So in the second fight, Volkanovski throws a kick, Holloway returns a kick. I think it was more so like, okay, you're going to throw something, I'm going to throw something as well, and I'm going to try to add a little bit more to it to try to get that decision from the judges. He's not going to Hanato Moicano Calvin Kattar here with kicks. He's not going to Zabit Magomed Sharipov Calvin Kattar with his flashy style. Yeah, I mean, I truly think that this is a Calvin Kattar fight where he goes out there, outboxes Holloway, puts the damage on him. And like Guru said, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kattar actually get him out of there. I think that the KO prop is very much live here, especially given how hittable Max Holloway is. Just, again, go through that list. Like, he's getting rocked so many times by all these fighters. Crazy that he's never recorded a knock or gotten knocked down in any of his fights, but you see him stumbling and rocked in some of these fights against Jose Aldo. Alexander Volkanovski lands a couple good shots on him too. Now you're getting a guy just as big as him, where his striking defense style of leaning out of the way is not going to work against Calvin Kattar, or at least it's not going to work for the entirety of the fight. I think he's going to pay for that, and Kattar's going to put it on him. So I like Kattar here. I like the plus 150 that we're closer to the plus 150 that we're going to be getting. I think we're going to get a ton of casual money coming in on Max Holloway over the next, well, the fight start in like 12 hours, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But I think that Kattar wins this fight. I think he finishes him somewhere between rounds 1 and 3. My only concern is if this does see the judges' scorecards, the output and volume of Holloway could potentially make it a little bit tricky. But I truly think the damaging blows of Calvin Kattar is truly where this fight gets set apart. And that's what Calvin Kattar is going to do. He's going to rough him up. The New England cartel is going to go out there and get another victory. They had Rob Font a couple weeks ago go out there and put out Marlon Moraes in that first round. I don't know if Kattar's going to do in the first round here, but I truly think he's very live for a KO. So I'm going with Calvin. I think he's a great dog here. But yeah, I don't think Max Holloway is done. But I'm still going with Calvin Kattar to win this fight via KO in rounds 1, 2, or 3.
Woo, dang, I like that take. Cody Saftic, who you going with?
Yeah, I'm going with the dog as well here in Calvin Kattar, and it's no disrespect to Max Holloway. Again, we can talk about all the damage he's taken, 765 significant strikes absorbed over his last 6 fights, but he's still only 29 years old. And when you see that second Volkanovski fight, his last fight, this is the first time he's not had a non-title fight in his last 8, been 4 or 5 years. It's like he is a legendary featherweight. He is one of the best guys to fight for a long time. So you can't easily just write him off. He's still only 29 years old. But again, this is a sport where styles are everything. And yeah, he has volume, but volume's only going to get you so far if you're not landing the better punches. And what I mean by that is when you look at the Dustin Poirier fight, right? And you can rewatch it as many times as you want. Max Holloway gets absolutely rearranged. He loses that fight no less than 4-1. You can't see it any other way than that. It's a very sound loss. And yet, by just fight metric numbers, he actually outstrikes Dustin Poirier in rounds 2, 3, and 4. And gets outstruck in round 5 by one single significant strike. Where was it, right? Because landing a few shots when the guy walks right through them and puts you in and absolutely puts some punishment on you, that's a lot more telling. And that's kind of what I feel here is that it's very hard to out-volume Max Holloway. How do you do that, right? Very difficult. But you got to go out there and land the better shots. And ultimately, him versus Volkanovski the second time, a lot of people want to scream robbery. Max looks terrific through the first 2 rounds. Then he takes his foot off the gas. And it's weird because when you look at Max Holloway historically, he's a slow starter. This guy usually goes out and dinks around for the first couple rounds and then puts it on you the later it goes. Where against Volkanovski the last time, it's like he switched everything up, went out there, had a good first couple rounds, and then took his foot off the gas and allowed Volkanovski to work his way back in that fight and cleanly, in my opinion, win it. Then Max comes out on the record and he talks about he's not sparring anymore. And that's an indication, obviously, that he's taken a lot of damage. And we talked about the Spencer Fisher thing. And you can only train so hard. Max notoriously trains very, very difficult. Then he goes into his fights. The Ricardo Lamas fight, right? It's cool. It's a historic moment. None of us on this panel certainly ever forget it. But it goes to show you how stupid that is. You've defeated Ricardo Lamas 30-27. You've won every single exchange. You've won every moment, okay? There's 15, 20 seconds left. And he's pointing like, hit me. And if you rewatch the sequence, he eats a couple big shots in there. Didn't need to eat those shots. Didn't need to do that, right? Already won the fight, but he's an entertainer. He wants to put it on. So when you see him fight lower level competition, he fights to their level, so to speak. And when you see all these great performances, just keep in mind this, right? Last fight against Alexander Volkanovski. He's not a striker, right? He's more of a grappler. He's a big, strong, heavy-set former rugby player. Takes you to the ground, very strong, very physically imposing. But striking is not his background. Max Holloway figures to be a better striker than Alexander Volkanovski. This is a kickboxing match. How has Volk got a shot in hell, right? but he loses. The fight before that, Alexander Volkanovski, Sandman outstrikes him. Before that, Frank Yeager. Frank Yeager can strike, but he's a wrestler. That's been his base. He's in and out of the pocket, has some okay boxing, but not a striker. He lands like 87 significant strikes on Max Holloway. He touches him up plenty. Brian Ortega, not a striker, jiu-jitsu guy. Certainly at that time, definitely making improvements now. But at that time, it's like non-striker. And yet he hits Max Holloway 110 times. But this is important, okay? Let's talk about the 3 times he actually did fight a striker. Dustin Poirier, who absolutely beat the shit out of him. And then the 2 Jose Aldo fights. And I really want to rewatch those. The first Jose Aldo fight, Aldo wins the first round, outstrikes Max Holloway. Aldo wins the second round, outstrikes Max Holloway. Max catches a tired, faded Jose Aldo in the third. They rematch very short after. Shouldn't have rematched, right? But they do. Aldo takes the fight on short notice for Frank Yeager, okay? Aldo arguably wins the first round. Aldo probably won the second round. Aldo tires and gets TKO'd in the third round. He doesn't deal very well against pure strikers. He deals well against non-strikers who he's able to just put a pace on. They hit him, but it doesn't really do all the... Calvin's a pure striker, right? He doesn't want to wrestle. He doesn't want to get taken down. He wants to get in your face. And he's a much more technical boxer than Holloway. The one thing is he doesn't have the volume. And people say he's hittable. And people say he doesn't deal well with leg kicks. You know why Max stopped throwing the leg kicks in the Volkanovski fight? He threw so many of them, he must have hurt his own leg and said, you know what? I want to stop doing that. He averted from the game plan. I don't think he wins a 5-round fight on throwing leg kicks for 25 minutes against Calvin Kattar. As far as the volume goes, Calvin's I think he's the better, crisper boxer. I think the counterpunching is going to be there. I think the jab is going to be there. Calvin's just got to make sure the cardio checks out. And then when you see in the Dan Ige fight, he loses the second round. But beyond that, he comes right back. Cardio checks out. But that's the Zabit Magomed Sharipov fight. That's the real telltale. Because Calvin's a bit of a slow starter himself. Gives it the first 2 rounds, having little success. You could feel the vibes coming out. And then the third round, Calvin Kattar is a man on fire. Calvin Kattar is possessed. Calvin Kattar is putting on Magomed Sharipov. The fight is in Moscow, Russia. Calvin Kattar leaves the confines of Boston, Massachusetts, goes all the way down to Moscow, enemy territory, and puts it on this guy, who they fucked him out of a 5-round fight and gave him a 3-round, or else Calvin Kattar walks out of that fight with his hand raised. Great performance, but they robbed you of the championship rounds. He hasn't been able to show you the championship rounds. Against Max Holloway is a champion. He's going to take you to those rounds. He's going to take you into deep waters, and you're going to have to prove something. But this is a close fight. It's an entertaining fight. It's a great fight. UFC coming back in style. But I got to go dog or pass. And you can't call me a coward on that because I've sat here and I've taken a lot of favorites. And I'm not a guy that just always takes the favorites. If that dog's got a legitimate chance, he's got a path to victory, and people aren't giving him his dues just because the other guy's got a better name or the other guy's got a better recent resume. We talk about recency bias all the time. We talk about, this and that, all things that drive prices. Max Holloway is a name. Max Holloway fought Conor McGregor. Max Holloway fought the legendary Jose Aldo. He's the former champion. He has a name. Calvin Kattar, to the casual fan, they don't even know who that is. So it's a good opportunity to, recognize that as far as skill goes, this guy's got a legitimate skill set and poses problems. Now, I also told you that Justin Gaethje would beat Khabib. So, am I right all the time? No. This is a crazy game. You need a certain set of circumstances to go down. But I think Calvin's a live dog for that reason. I'm backing him as an underdog play. So make it 3 for 3. But it doesn't make knowing you guys are on the same, or Guru and Locke on the same. We'll see who would bleed. Knowing you guys are on the same side, it's like, all right. I'm not totally far off. Like you guys see the same thing. But it doesn't make it any more reassuring. We're betting against Max Holloway, And I had Volkanovski against Holloway the last time, first and second time, certainly that second time. And oh man, you really had to pray the judges also had Volkanovski because it was a close fight. I thought he won, but it was a really close fight. This Calvin Kattar fight figures to be close as well. So I'm not the most confident in the world, but I'm not just going to ride the favorite again here. I'm going to go with the underdog.
I tell you what, guys, there's a reason why this is the main event bringing us into 2021, kicking it off. There's a reason why this is the main event on the first card on ABC. And it's because this fight's going to be action-packed. That's what I'm going to guarantee in this fight. An absolutely super entertaining banger of a fight. 2 dudes that are going to go in there and lay it on the line. And man, I tell you what, all week I've been back and forth. Who's going to win this fight? I feel like I see a path to victory for Max Holloway. I see a path to victory for Calvin Kattar. Everything you guys have said, I agree with. But you know what? When it comes down to it, I'm taking the legend Max Holloway, the former champion. I think this is going to be a close fight. I do think Calvin Kattar is the better pure boxer in this matchup. He's got the reach advantage, and I think it's going to play into it. And I do think this is going to be a very close fight. something tells me we just see that throwback Max performance where he's going to win 3 out of the 5 rounds. I think it's going to be very close. I think it probably goes to the judges' scorecards. No one's ever been able to take Max out. I just see Max at the end of the night having the better numbers, the more output, and taking this one in a very close decision. So I know I'm contrarian, but I ended up on Max. I got to stick with my pick. It is what it is. So we've done it, boys. The first card of 2021 in the books. This Saturday ought to be a good one. Wish everyone the best of luck. We're going to throw it around the horn, and I think we're going to be back sooner than normal because we have a Wednesday card. So be on the lookout, guys. Who knows? Guru, tell them where to find you.
Yeah, man. Happy to, be back. It felt like it was a long time. It really wasn't that long, but it felt like it was a long time for some reason, so I'm definitely excited to be back. We had a lot of people, kick it in the chat again, almost 500 people. So yeah, man, you guys are still here supporting, and, I had a lot of fun doing the show. So hopefully you guys had fun listening to it, and hopefully we could make some money tomorrow too. So that's always the goal. And yeah, man, we're going to probably be back on Tuesday, right, for the after the weigh-in show for that one. So come and check that out. And you could check me out at MMA Prediction Guru on YouTube and Prediction MMA on Twitter. So come and check me out if you want to.
Oh, it feels so good to be back. My man, MMA Lock of the Night. Tell them where you're at.
Yeah, you guys can follow me at MMA LOTN on Twitter. MMA LOTN is the YouTube channel as well, too. I'm glad that tomorrow's card is super early. You know what I mean? We got a noon EST start. Now the West Coasters are finally having to suffer waking up at 9 a.m. But not only that, on Wednesday as well, that fight kicks off at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So they got to be up at 6 a.m. Eastern time, and we're finally chilling. It's a good change of pace considering that we usually have to stay up till like 1:30 a.m. watching these fight cards that are regularly at that 10 p.m. main card start time. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, this was a great breakdown. I loved doing it with you guys. Glad to get some insights. Really looking forward to that Condit and Brown fight now too, especially after these breakdowns. But yeah, once again, MMA LOTN on Twitter for me and MMA LOTN as well on YouTube. Yeah, can't wait for the next one.
Absolutely. And Cody Saftic, take us home, my man.
Yeah, well, obviously another, I want to say successful first show in the books, but we got to wait until tomorrow to see if it was successful or not. But anyways, fingers crossed as always. It was great chatting with you guys. I know it's our first show back for the year, but I always check out the comment section, and it has been live tonight, man. Super funny, a lot of good disclosure as well, a lot of informative picks as well. And I just like to see people going back and forth. So shout out to everybody who takes the time out of their day to tune in and support us. You can always catch me on Twitter at CJ Saftic. Also, yeah, I mean, I'm doing this work with this Monkey Knife Fight. They're at MKF on Twitter. Monkey Knife Fight's their own website. It's similar to DraftKings. It's similar to FanDuel. It's just over-unders. So, yeah, I'll have a ton of cool promo stuff. If you want to know anything about that, hit me up on Twitter. And again, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we can make a profitable one for you guys in don't even got to watch on about 12 hours or so, right?
No doubt. I'm Bleed. I've been your host. Big thank you to these guys. They bring it every week, man. I love listening to these guys. Love getting their insights. Thank you guys to the chat for getting it. Hey, you guys got some good opinions too. Everybody who's watching, if you're catching this on the replay, we appreciate it. Hit those thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. But most of all, let's have some fun. Let's make some money. We will catch you guys soon. We are out of here.